well, I might as well introduce you to my team. Or we're sitting here kind of waiting.
Good idea.
Everybody, this is David.
Morning.
This is everybody. This is Nicole. I don't know if you've met her before, but she's definitely been in our conferences. Janet does all of our trafficking. She does so much more within the company, but specifically with me, she does all the trafficking of our ads. And
Really?
yes.
You do all the ad trafficking. That's good.
Well, she's not the traffic, but that's only like one part of, how she saves my life on a daily basis.
All right.
We have Mike O'Heens in sales, Brian Levias in sales, Leslie's in sales, Tracy's in sales in the back. There's Jenny, Wendy, all in sales. That is Susan. She's our national sales manager for radio and for television.
Hey, Susan.
You've met Adam, and then Eddie is our senior. What is your official title? Senior liaison to the
sales.
yeah.
Yeah, senior.
The one who's been here the
You
longest in the room. How about that?
you need something to follow the word senior. Otherwise,
Yeah. Yes.
good.
So yes.
And is everybody selling everything kind of thing? Yeah. Yeah.
No, Susan is radio and television. Everybody else sells everything, right? Well,
Got it.
they attempt to. There's some of us have more, like they lean more towards television if they came from television. Some of them have more radio if they came from radio. Some of them more print if they came from print.
Okay.
Digital is kind of the new baby amongst all of them.
Okay.
So yeah, but everybody's selling everything.
So basically, you have clients, and then whatever that client needs runs through the same representative.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the only anomaly to that is digital. If it's
Okay.
not active in digital in the last 6 months, then it's open for everybody to give it a shot. But outside of that, if you have something in radio, then you also have it in television and print.
Got it.
And there's exceptions to that rule as well.
So for
There are
something,
some grandfathered ones. We have some clients that had great relationships with reps in television and great relationships with reps in radio, and so didn't want to lose one or the other, so they kept it separate
Okay.
like that. So there's some exceptions to that rule.
okay, so there's a general movement, and then there's a few exceptions
There's a whole bunch
along
of
the
gray.
way. So you guys just did an auction, as an example. That kind of fits. I mean, I guess it's predominantly a digital product. So you would all have gone out and had, the auction would have been responsibility for everybody. Now you guys killed the auction. I should tell you, around our network, we run auctions, but not like the one you just ran. So how come? How come that was so successful? Why was that so?
Sell other media in the market, or do they only sell digital?
So it's even worse. They only sell digital, and we have this digital auction, and they did not perform like you guys did.
Well, we do television auction, right? And we've done that for how many years? So there's increments of $1,000 or more in television, right? So this way we were able to break it down into 25s or 50s. So it made it a little more easier to
I
get
see.
that
Yeah, because the TV auction would be a lot of the higher end stuff. They've had cars,
and the highest increment is $1,000, so you
Right.
can't break it down.
but you're still
Yeah, that's tough.
But now you can go after these little ones.
Right.
And get the exposure and still get a lot of advertising. And so it's a good fit for them.
They like trade.
They like the trade.
do like
Trade.
Got it.
They like to trade.
So the trade actually made it easier and small increments as well. It was amazing. Like at the end of the day, you guys did an amazing job. I know there were a couple of people who really sort of knocked it out of the park, because I heard that on the call. Unless I'm mistaken about that, who would have killed it in the auction?
Mike, Izzy were the top. Izzy sold 21,000 of the 84.
Holy
and
crap.
Mike sold 18,000. Tracy was close behind that.
That's amazing.
The exact number. But
Yeah, it's amazing. We don't have anybody who did that, so that's really encouraging stuff. That's good. Look, sales is still transactions at the end of the day, right? You still have to have somebody commit to something, and we can say that some of these things are easier than others, but I respect all the transactions that you guys can make happen, because it's pretty hard to do. Okay. Does everybody know why we're here? Yeah. Anybody want to hazard a guess to describe what they think we're gonna talk about today?
Hopefully everything. Well, in a sense. 'Cause it really is new to it. Like,
Yeah.
it is kind of new to us.
How to increase sales for digital.
Right.
There you go. Okay. All right. When you increase sales for digital for the company, I think it's important to understand some of the net benefit for the company, because I think it's good for you guys to know how important what you're doing is for the company. So the company really appreciates value in two ways. So one, they get revenue on a daily, monthly, yearly basis, and they make profit on that revenue. And the other is they build what we call enterprise value, which is the value of its assets. How much are its media assets actually worth? And so, you know, in large companies like a Postmedia or a Torstar or Glacier and these other large media companies, you know, they're publicly traded, and so their value is made public continually to anybody who cares to look it up. And how is that value determined? It's part of it is in how much they sell, and then they take a look at these things and say, how long do we think they can keep selling this for? And that becomes the way they value that media company. So if they look at their newspaper assets and say, well, newspaper assets made, you know, $30 million, how many years do we think they can continue to make that $30 million? And they go, well, last year they made 60, and the year before that they made 100, so maybe not that many years. So I'm only going to say the company is going to do this for 2 more years, so I'm just going to multiply those two numbers together and say the company is now worth $60 million. So this is called their enterprise value, which is great. When you go out there and build up a digital property the way that we're going to talk about building up a digital property, you are building the value of that property. So it isn't just about the money that you're going to get from an advertiser that month. You're actually going to make your digital asset a lot more valuable for a lot longer. And that's good for the company, and I think that's really good for everybody in this room too. Okay, I want to start off by talking a little bit about the objections that you've been getting, and maybe some of the things you're uncomfortable with, some of the things that maybe you question about digital before we dive in. So does anybody want to throw up just a typical objection that you might get when it comes to digital, if you present digital, or maybe something that prevents you from presenting digital because maybe there's something you don't quite understand or buy into or believe?
So the biggest one right now is it's very expensive. I can go on Facebook and buy however many impressions, and it's much cheaper, and I can like target my audience. And the other one is I could buy like MSN and all different websites, and I only pay for the click-throughs, not the impressions. And I had a client show me his bill for like, it was $3 and something, and he had well over 120,000 impressions for the month. Because you only pay for the click-throughs.
So for that $3, did he pay for the clicks and got 1,000 impressions, or is it he paid just for the clicks that he got on those impressions?
Just for the clicks.
So he would have got those impressions.
Really good.
For PC, ad blockers gets brought up.
Yeah, ad blockers. Do we have ad blockers for TV, radio? I guess no. That'd be pretty tough, eh? Well, I guess they have their own version when people record stuff and then zip through, you know, stuff they don't want to see, but really don't have ad blockers like you do in the internet, for sure. Agreed. When we talk about the click-through rate, or, you know, I can get seen this many times versus, you know, get seen over here, is that discussion really only happen between, say, Facebook and MSN, Google, and our digital property? Or do people have those kinds of conversations with radio and TV and digital properties? So you face that with when you're selling TV or radio. Hey, why do I want to spend X amount of dollars on radio when I can spend this in Facebook and targeted my ads for like $5 instead of spending $50,000 for the year on radio? What do you say about that? for radio or for TV. Somebody comes at you and says, man, I paid $3 for 100,000 impressions. That's pretty good. What can you offer me for $3?
Well,
Probably
for
not a
radio,
lot.
I go through the demographics because I'm going to sell you the audience. If that's what you're looking to target.
So if they say, okay, so that's fantastic. Let's work on that. So radio, how do you determine that audience?
From our sheets that we get. So
we
we
get
get a third party comes in and does a survey in the market.
Right. So they'll survey a small section of the market and then they'll extrapolate that data across the entire market because you can't survey every single person in the market, right? So we get sort of a representative sample, right? And then we extrapolate that across the entire market. Okay. So you say to them, hey, listen, this is who we're reaching with radio. And they say, yeah, no, I don't doubt that. I believe you're reaching those people with radio, but you're charging me like $25,000 to reach those people, and I can reach those same people theoretically through Facebook for $500. What do you say then?
I have a client that I can argue till I'm blue in the face and counter back and forth, and it'll all boil down to Facebook for him. I haven't been able to counter that with him.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of fake news on the internet. So if you're on radio, it gives you some sort of authority, like gives you
Local
credibility. Credibility is what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one that I use often.
And what's the response when you use that? People buy into that?
Yeah, I'd say more often than not.
Right.
Sometimes we use results too of another campaign that someone else has had, so you can prove that someone did well and did X number of dollars on that day of doing a remote or whatever live
Right.
application.
Right.
So then it's results driven because if they're not believing that they're reaching those people necessarily, but they hear that the Power Center, one of the places, had an awesome day, then that's what I try and use. If they're all about Facebook, doesn't always work.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like we're having kind of the same objection regardless of the media. It isn't just, radio is not immune to the Facebook argument or the Google argument, and TV is not immune to those arguments. It's chipping away at all the stuff. And it sounds like the rebuttal, is sort of results-based, and context-based. Like we have different kind of content. We have rules and regulations. We maybe have a different environment that your ad shows up in than maybe Facebook would be. Okay, so from your perspective, does radio work? What makes you think it works?
You could just have one media, radio, without any of the others, and it shows can be hugely successful. Say remotes, you just get an overwhelming amount of people, not just using radio. You do a solid week campaign for a sale on the weekend, using a lot of spots and that, and
It works.
it works.
They'll tell you it works.
Yeah.
They'll tell you if it doesn't.
That's right, but it depends on the message, and it depends on the event, it depends on the sale, or it depends if you're branded, or it depends, if you just have a blah, blah, blah message, well, then you're not gonna get seen, right, or
Yeah.
heard or whatever. So,
Creative.
I think you can probably do a good campaign on anything, but it's all in the creative
Yeah.
the message.
Okay. But you feel like if the creative's good and you run enough frequency over a long enough period of time,
Yes.
If all the variables.
On radio, I don't know that about web. Like, I haven't done a solid 1 week, really hard, spend as much money as you do on radio for web and see how it works.
And make sure that's the
I'm not,
yeah.
just use that media and that's it. I'd like to see the results from that. With a
Yeah.
good commercial, a good sale, and see how it does compare.
so when you have a client who feels that way about radio because they've never done it, so the client says, yeah, I've listened to the radio station now and then. I've never done anything on radio. I'm doubtful that it works just because I've never done it and I've never known anybody else who does it. would you then talk to them about, well, here's my demographic reach. Here's basically how it works. We have all these people listening to this station, and they're listening to these programs at these times. And this is what they're doing when they're listening to these programs. They're driving their car, again and again, listening to the same programs. And when we insert your message in there, they are hearing that message over and over again. That we know. How they react to that message, we're not 100% sure, but we know they're going to listen to that message again and again and again. So imagine if I could present a scenario for you where you could reach the same person driving in their car at the same point each day, and you would have the ability to tell them anything you want. Would that be powerful? Right? So if that's your message to them, to sell radio, because they have no experience having bought radio before, to convince them to try radio. Does that seem reasonable? Does that seem like a reasonable way to get someone to try radio? So it's no different for Cora with you guys and digital, right? Because you guys may say, look, we've never run digital. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying I don't have any experience having seen it work. I don't have any sort of hard, fast experience understanding how it works. So part of what we do to overcome that, both with sales professionals and with customers, is for them to really understand sort of the workings of digital. So we can take away as much of the doubt as possible. Because as we all know, you can run bad ad campaigns. I'm sure you've all had customers that have had ad copy that you know when that creative gets done, it's not going to work very well. And that customer is not going to want to think it's because of that ad copy. They're going to want to think the problem is with the medium. Radio does not work. And we all know that advertising and marketing is not super easy. It's not like, oh, if I put anything on Facebook, I'm going to make $1 million. If I put anything on radio, like my sale is just going to be packed. It's not that easy, right? There's some very fundamental principles that need to be adhered to regardless of the media. All right, I think we're going to address, I hope, all of those objections as we go along. But I have a couple other questions, more practical questions. Do the economics of selling digital make sense? And I don't want to get into the details, not my business, and the details of how you guys earn what you earn, but do the economics for you of digital make sense? Meaning, when you go out there to sell a client, if you actually sold them digital, is it worthwhile for you guys to do so? Or do you feel like the amount of what you sell in digital is so small that it's so insignificant for you personally that it's not really worth the time? Because let's face it, like, there's more stuff to learn. The fulfillment process is not super easy. Why would you do it if you're going to sell like $300, of which you take a small percentage to learn all this stuff? Do the economics make sense, in your opinion, so far? Not yet. Right, and look, they need to, right? So we are going to introduce some programs that are worth a lot more money because it's about the same effort for you to sell those programs, but it's much more meaningful to sell a $26,400 program than it is to sell a $100 program. So we introduce programs that really start at $6,000. They're annualized programs. They start at $6,000. At the time that we introduced them in April, our reps were averaging a couple $100, $300 per sale, like really small numbers. And the length of sale term was 30 days, 60 days, going back out, reselling them, these little site rotator ads, the easiest things they could sell. We changed that. It was a bit of a paradigm shift where now they're selling $6,000 and up programs, and we have these $26,000 programs that they're selling in each market as well. So we are going to talk about that. We do need the economics to make sense. I think we all understand in this room that if I have to do this much work to sell a product that costs this much, that makes me this much, that product is probably not going to get sold. And that's not to say that you guys aren't going to do everything you can to help the company move their digital agenda forward, But I think realistically, these things all have to make sense all the way along. And I don't think the company's that interested in investing in a fulfillment process for products that cost $100, that cost $150 to fulfill, right? So we want to try to eliminate that as part of this training as well. Last question, how do you like to sell stuff in terms of your multimedia? So if you have a digital component, do you like to bundle it in with your radio sale or your TV sale, or would you rather say, hey, let's sell that, and then I'd like to come back and talk to you about something that is separate from this over here. So let's do this deal and then come back here and do the digital deal. Which do you prefer? Bundled, eh?
Well, and it depends on the
I
client too.
disagree.
Sometimes.
You gotta sell it separately because you're not building, it's not in mainstream media yet. So you're not building the value yet of that media unless if you just add it on as a bundle, it seems like something you just threw in. It's
Yeah.
like, kinda like selling our two mainstream stations and throwing in our low power energy station. That's usually the way we pitch it. It's gotta be pitched separately. And the other dilemma is we've got budgets to hit our mainstream medias that are a lot more cost intensive when it comes to running those medias versus what perception of running digital.
Yeah.
It's not as mainstream yet. I'm not saying it's not going to get there soon, but right now it's not mainstream. So they perceive it as they don't perceive the value yet. You know, because they see all these websites and they think, oh, it's just a hodgepodge. It's kind of like having 500 TV channels. You know, it's just a hodgepodge. They're not really watching your two stations. They're not really reading your website. They're reading
Yeah.
CNN. They're reading NFL. They're on
Right.
all those other websites. So you got to build the value separately. I think. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean you can't add it on in a buy,
But it can't be a
you
throw-in.
weaken the perception.
Yeah. Yeah, and it will be very hard to get. I would agree. And if you're talking about packages that are somewhere between $6,000 and $30,000, it's pretty hard to throw those things in. Now, bundling's not out of the question, right? In the way you said, because it becomes, bundling in the sense that, I bought this distinct product and it's maybe bananas, and I bought this distinct product and it happens to be steak, and somebody told me, well, if you buy them both together, it's actually more economical for you. Doesn't mean I blurred the lines between bananas and steak. They're still discrete items. But we had to prove the value of each one independently, which I would agree with. Now, I would challenge the fact that the web as an advertising medium, I believe, is probably the most proven medium now. That's not to say your website is. Your website is not proven to a lot of the people you talk to probably, but the web itself, I think, is the most proven. That's why you're running up against Facebook, and that's why you're running up against Google, because these people are saying, listen, old media was so expensive to make, and yeah, it was pretty effective and stuff, but now everybody's streaming and everybody's doing stuff online, and so I'm going in to find the cheapest possible way I can take advantage of this juggernaut called the internet. So I don't think people are doubting that the internet is effective, but they're doubting that your version of the internet is effective. So if you were going out there selling Facebook and saying, hey, have you heard of this site called Facebook? And Facebook has ads on it and they're pretty effective. I don't think you'd have a lot of people saying to you, nobody goes to Facebook. I think you'd be general consensus, yep, a lot of people go to Facebook. I don't know what they do on Facebook. I don't know how relevant it is to what I'm selling, but yes, a lot of people go online and look at Facebook. So you don't have that luxury with TV News Watch where you can just go out and say, hey, look, everybody's on TV News Watch. You're going to have some people go, really? Are you sure about that? I don't know how many people are on TV News. Does anybody go to that site? Whereas, with Google, nobody's going to say, yeah, people don't go to Google. Everybody knows people go to Google every single day. So, yes, you have a local challenge in the digital sector with your website, but it is not a general internet challenge, because in the marketplace, internet spending is doing that, like that, and every other media is kind of doing that, right? So how do we capitalize on that upward trend and make it work for us instead of what it's doing right now, which is against us, right? Everybody's kind of holding Facebook and Google AdSense and whatever else against what we're doing and saying that it's better value. Okay, all right. Well, let's see if we can address some of those questions And let's keep this open. So you guys have anything to say at any point, you want to stop it, you want to talk about something, you just let me know. Anybody ever heard the expression, the network effect? Yeah, anybody want to hazard a guess? Not really a guess if the definition is kind of like right there. What they think that might mean? Anybody want to try to? The more advertisers you have, which is not technically the network effect, but we'll get to that. The more advertisers you have and the more readers you engage, the better your site should become. So this sounds obvious, but it is totally not the case. There wouldn't be ad blockers if that was the case. People block ads because, why? Why do people block ads?
They're annoying.
Okay, they're annoying. And look, would they block ads on radio and TV if they could? Probably, right? Remember classifieds when they were awesome, in newspapers? Remember that? How many people do you think would block classified ads in the classified section back in the day when we had like really full classified section? If you said to somebody, hey, is that classified section, I can block all your ads. How many people would? Block all the ads in the classified section. No one. And why not?
There's a need.
Because that content actually made the paper more valuable. We wanted that content. It was good content. It was useful content. When we got away from that, it creates problems. It's really hard to build long-term value for a media property when whether you have one reader or 1,000 readers, it doesn't matter. Whether you have one advertiser or 1,000 advertisers, it doesn't matter. That's not good. If you take a look at why social media blew up and was so successful, Twitter was an empty room. Without users and posting all their stuff, Twitter has zero value to anybody. It has no value. All of a sudden, all these users come in, and the more users came in, the more valuable Twitter became. Same with Facebook. Facebook, empty room. People come in, they start putting in their content, it becomes more and more and more and more and more valuable. How many websites get more valuable the more readers come to it? Your website needs to get better the more you have readers. If it's the same site, whether you have one reader or 1 million readers, that's not good. If it's the same site or worse when you get advertisers, also not good, right? So I can tell you at Torstar, so I ran digital for Metroland for a long time, and when we first introduced our websites, we wanted to monetize them, and we did a pretty good job of monetizing them. We generated millions of dollars of ad revenue, and we made our sites worse. We had pull downs and peel backs and all kinds of stuff that really got in the way, but we didn't care of users. We didn't care. We needed to monetize as quickly as possible. So we generated a lot of money, and our traffic over time, not surprisingly, did this, because the more people we got, the slower our sites became, and the more advertisers we put on, the worse the experience became for users. That's a bad combination. What we want is, we want the network effect, which means the more people get involved, the more valuable and the better your product becomes, right? This is what we want in all media, but specifically we need to do this in digital, and we're going to show you how today. So to become necessary, you need to provide information that strengthens the community, in part by leveraging the support of the local economic base. That's actually not that easy to do. How do you strengthen the community by using local advertisers? How can you work with local advertisers to make Thunder Bay a better community? Even in some small way, how can you do that? It sounds great. If I come out and said, hey, I've got something that will actually make Thunder Bay a bit better, and we're going to use all the local businesses to do it. And then we're going to tell everybody that, look at all these local businesses. They all helped us make Thunder Bay a better place. And so they're all going to say, oh, we're going to want to go and patronize those businesses because they helped make our city a better place. That sounds wonderful. It's hard to do. But it's the eventual goal of media. How do we strengthen the local economic base, use them, partner with them to make our community better? That's what we're going to try to do. So as it turns out, a lot's going on online. It's different. We think of TV News Watch as editorial content, which is super important. And there's all these rules around editorial content, which there should be. That's also really important. And editorial content is really from us to you, right? It's like a one-way street. We decide what we're going to cover, we cover it, and we make it available to you guys. We send it out. It's like a ray, right? It's not an interaction, right? It's not users aren't coming in, chiming in, and saying to your journalist, hey, this is how I think you should cover this story. Or, I don't think that fact is correct. It's not like that. For good reason. It is a one-way street. That's important content. We can call that a community service. It's very important to communities. You guys all know that because you're in the media business where news is a big part of what you do. It is really important in a community that you have unbiased, comprehensive local news coverage. So we know that. So over here with local media, here's what they're responsible for. They have local news coverage, death notices, special sections, event coverage, community content, city hall, police coverage. That's the standard stuff everybody knows about. That's great.
Okay, can I just bring some of that up there?
Sure.
Okay, so our death notices, sometimes people don't die in the city for 4 or 5 days because we just don't post them. You go to the Chronicle Journal's website that's updated daily. You know, and this is where I try to get these funeral homes and whatnot to advertise on our site, and they're like, well, it's not updated. I actually just pitched one of my guys, and it hadn't been updated for 4 days.
Oh, I see what you're saying now. Sorry. When you said people don't die for 4 or 5 days,
That's what it
Not
says
your
here,
main
right?
so you mean that when they die, sometimes that information is not posted for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
I
It's
see.
behind.
Got it. Okay. On TV News Watch?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, great point. That is a process problem. So what we do out of the Sioux, and certainly we can talk about that because you guys have options on how you do things as a partner.
It's just a stumbling point to try and sell.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a good point. What we do is we actually go and scrape that information. We get authorization from the funeral homes, and we actually go and scrape that information as soon as they post it ourselves. So we don't leave it up to a mechanism of the funeral home or a feed or whatever. We go in there and we get it ourselves. So our obits are, probably 25% of our traffic, right? Like we have millions and millions and millions of visits to obits. Village Media, sorry, the Village Media sites.
You guys have a group of people that go out and do that?
We have 1/10 of one person who does that for like 12 sites. As it turns out, there's not all that many people who die on a daily basis. I mean, it sounds like there'd be a lot, and we do it for like Halifax, as well as our 10 markets. We do a lot of this stuff, right? So let's take that as a takeaway. You want obits up faster.
Yeah, just
Oh.
timely.
Makes sense.
So we do the same thing, David. We have permission from our funeral homes, and we go scrape the sites as soon as they post them. We have a couple of funeral homes that work with us and do send us, but not very often.
And are the funeral homes just late in posting it?
I don't know if the funeral homes are late in posting them.
I go in every morning and look, and sometimes they'll just have the name and say full of it won't be ready until the actual funeral, so I have to wait until the funeral to post it. So I'm not gonna just post the name.
For sure not.
Even have a photo or
For
anything.
sure not.
So
But I go in every morning.
The only time that there would ever be a delay, like a 4-day thing, that Tracy's referring to is on the weekends. We don't have staff on the weekends that's posting it. And that's, the Saturday is the biggest day for obits because everything goes in the Chronicle, right? That's the biggest,
They play all the ones that died that week, and they just put them
all
all
on
on
the
Saturday.
Saturday.
So
that's,
it's in there twice, the day they died, plus it's on Saturday,
The Chronicle is the other,
daily paper.
is that the Glacier publication?
No, Horizon.
And so it doesn't sound like it's very good with them if they're.
They post, they're sort of the long-term placement for death announcements, they always have been.
Right.
So the funeral
'Cause they're
homes
daily,
automatically,
yeah.
When you book a funeral, they are already booking an ad in the Chronicle for
Yeah,
that, so
yeah,
it's
makes
automatic.
sense.
That's something we can probably look at changing because that's their go-to.
Yeah, and some of them have done that with us, especially if you offer it as a free service.
Yeah.
because it gives them more to offer the people who are coming in, right? So let's take that one offline. Good point. We'll figure out if there's a more efficient way for us to do that.
It's a habit too with the Chronicle because it was that daily paper.
Absolutely.
Where all the older people.
But I can tell you that's every single market we're in, right? Because we were never a paper as Village in those markets.
We're just breaking down the barriers.
Right. And so every market had a daily or still does. And that's just the de facto, you know.
It's changing. I think
It is
the
100%
first years
changing.
that was, I mean, we had a precursor website many years ago called tvsource.com that was one of the biggest requests from seniors, people when they're away in Florida or Phoenix. They want to know who dies while they're away. So that was a big request early on.
Right. Well, I mean, now's the time, right? But we want to make sure that we can do this in an efficient manner so people don't, you know, dip their toe in the pool and then find out that we posted the wrong thing or didn't post it in a timely manner or whatever.
Can you give access to funeral homes to do it on their own on the weekends?
We would absolutely give them access to do that, but they do not. We've had that conversation with them. That's why we go scrape it, because they don't send it to us, right? They do it with the Chronicle and they just don't.
Yeah, imagine we go and scrape it for free
What, you know,
and post it for free, right? It's pretty good.
Charge them and they upsell.
Yeah.
They charge more than your Chronicle charges them.
Yeah.
It's a moneymaker
Sure.
for the funeral homes.
And it could be for them with us too. Okay, so let's move past that one. And let's go to look at local users and what the local users contribute to the site. Now remember, we're building this big content ecosphere, right? It's not just the content that our local news department is providing. You're going to find out that's actually a relatively small part of the content that makes up your site. You have local users, they post classifieds or comments or likes, they like businesses, they share articles and businesses and whatever, they can make recommendations, and they can also post their own bios on the site, which means they can actually build out a user profile, which is something we're going to talk a little bit about because all of you guys are going to want to do that if you haven't already. And then we have advertiser content. They have profiles, which are really comprehensive. They have bios of their staffers. They have sales and special offers. They write spotlight articles, which are really great descriptions of why they're so amazing to deal with. They have local ad content. And then they have listings like autos and real estate and jobs. All of this kind of stuff represents a big section of our local content mix. And then down here we have community organizations and event organizers. They have event details, fundraising, local sponsorship opportunities, local ad spotlight articles, etc. When this is all fleshed out, some really cool stuff happens. Local users start commenting on that local news coverage, and they start sharing that local news coverage, and they start coming up with ideas that they're sending you for local news coverage, and they start buying and selling stuff that they see posted on your site. Over here, they start purchasing and hiring these local businesses who have all this great information there. And then down here, they're donating or they're showing up at an event or they're volunteering for an event for this kind of stuff that exists. So on your best community sites, and the Sioux is a great example of this. The Sioux is more popular in the Sioux than Facebook. With over 20 million page views a month in a community of 73,000 people. Everybody in the Sioux goes to the Sioux Today. Do they all love Sioux Today? They absolutely don't all love Sioux Today, but they all go. And this is the kind of stuff that happens. So the enterprise value of Sioux Today is really, really big because it has become the dominant media in that market. The most successful site in Canada is a site called Castanet. The Sioux would probably be number 2. It's number 1 in Ontario. It would be number 2 in Canada. Castanet, which is older than Sioux Today in a bigger market, probably about 220, 240,000 people. They get about 35 million page views, and they do millions of dollars of revenue. They sell almost no national ads, meaning no programmatic, no remnant ads that are coming in because they're basically sold out. They are the dominant media in that marketplace. They have TV, they have newspapers, they have radio in that market. They are absolutely the dominant media in that marketplace because they've done this.
What do you have to compete against in Sioux?
Radio.
Well, there's a daily, which I don't know how often. They have radio, I guess. TV is an affiliate.
Probably what is the CTV?
Yeah. Global.
Now,
is there
if-
active people selling Facebook in the Sioux? Is there active?
Well, Postmedia will sell Facebook. They'll sell, AdWords, whatever. They will sell programmatic mostly. So they'll go out and sell, hey, do you want to hit real estate intenders who live in the Sioux, I'll go out and sell you that. I don't know what sites they're going to show up on, doesn't really matter. We've determined that they're real estate intenders, so we'll show them ads, whatever site they go on. It might be CNN, it might be New York Times or whatever. We're going to buy up that remnant space and sell it back to you. So they will sell that. They'll sell Facebook ads, sure, if guys want to buy them. We don't. As Village, we will only sell stuff that we control. We will only sell stuff that has our own first-party data. But we'll talk about that piece too.
Very active people in Thunder Bay that sell a lot of Facebook ads that present that as a all or nothing campaign in a big way. Like they're big dollars. Show Media sells a lot of car dealers, a lot of individuals. You see more and more of these. And my opinion is they're going to try for a while, and a lot of them won't redo it.
Oh, for sure they won't. We've seen, like I can tell you because we're ahead of that curve in the GTA, and that ship has sailed.
Yeah, right now it's still fresh air. It's not mature.
Right. So I can tell you the good news on the horizon, it goes over the curve. Yeah, that's a short cycle. In the Sioux, basically, they're the media you don't want to sell against, right? Like it's not like their sales reps are just unbelievably great. You know, some of them came from the competition. And it was like, I don't want to go out and sell against this kind of engagement. Your audience is so loyal, and this kind of stuff is happening on the Sioux website, whereas it's not happening in any other media. We don't see this kind of interaction taking place. But fundamental to this is to make sure you have these pieces of content. Where does that come from? Well, largely the people in this room, because we're not going to get this kind of content without actually having advertisers. So how does the timeline usually work? You start off with local news and information because you can do that day one, right? As you guys did when you launched your site. And then you start to get readership. People start looking at it. They make the odd comment. They subscribe to your email if you have one. And then they start filling in the odd user bio. That's sort of step one, right? Grassroots. Then you start to sign up a few community organizations. Usually they're free, or you have a 2-for-1 deal or something like that. And then of course you make your big push to get local advertisers. You need to get that local advertiser content on there, not just the ads. You need their content. It's really important to building out your site. Once you can do that, then you start getting user interaction. They start liking businesses. They start recommending businesses. The system can actually recommend businesses to different users based on the fact that this user liked it and this user similar to that user, so maybe that user might like this business too. Hey, have you considered taking a look at this business? You guys all use Amazon? Anybody not use Amazon ever? Never used Amazon? Okay, well, you know what? Good for you. You're buying locally, shopping locally, good for you. For those who have used Amazon, ever had anything recommended to you? Hey, you bought this, other people who bought this also bought that, right? Now, when you go into a store, they do that all the time, just naturally speaking. Oh, I talked to a guy just like you, and he had this same problem, and so he bought this product. We want to be able to do that online, but we can't do it without this kind of information.
How do you promote the Sioux? How do you advertise for it?
Sioux Today? Well, they don't, right? Like the Sioux Today does nothing in the way of local advertising. It's very involved in the community. And when you have a user base that comes to your site 10 times a day, the purpose of advertising them. So a better question would be, how would Guelph Today?
How did you get that news?
Yeah, so in the Sioux, it's been so long now, it's hard to say. Like they basically signed up advertisers. They basically posted a lot of good advertising content that was unique. So if people wanted certain sales and specials, whatever, they had to go to Sioux Today. They had great news coverage. So if they wanted to find out what was going on better than the local paper or anywhere else, they went to Sioux Today. And over time, if you keep delivering what people want, people are going to go. So here's a great example. Guelph Today started the moment that they shut down. They had a daily and a weekly. Metroland had a daily and a weekly in the market. The moment that the daily shut down and kind of amalgamated with the weekly and they made one website, Guelph Today started up like a week later. And people wanted a daily newspaper, so Guelph Today started up as a daily news website. So today, flash ahead 3 years, Guelph Today has 4 times the traffic of the daily, weekly website from Metroland, which had been there for 20 years. So how? Well, they just provided a lot of the information, this site anatomy, better. And when you're a better resource, people are going to use you. And we started getting that kind of interaction that we're talking about. So we're going to talk about some of the programs we did in Guelph because we can do those same programs here. And here's the amazing thing. So Guelph, which has already sold a ton of these programs, has 2/3 of the traffic that you do. So they're behind the curve. TV News Watch would be here, Guelph would be here. So anything Guelph is doing, there's no reason that we can't replicate that here, and then some.
Is that the full page in the Sioux right now? Is that
This is, yes, this is your home page. Is this your home page? Or is Sioux Today?
Only one ad. That to me is, that stands way out better than others.
Yeah, so I should just point out that this is kind of shrunk, right? It kind of goes down here, so you'll see a whole bunch of, yeah, let's you. Yeah, it's, well, the Sioux has done, Village has done a lot of work on ad speed and where ads are placed and how much ad saturation. So we've tried to optimize all of that for our partners. So while the website, it's funny, once upon a time, you know, you'd build website, designers would build them, they call people in the room and people would be like, oh, that's slick, that's beautiful. Oh, I love the look of that, I love that color. And it turns out users didn't give a crap at all. They want ease of use. They don't really care how pretty the font is. So we set this up and people would look at it and say, I don't know, it's not, there's nothing really sexy about that. I mean, it's just an ad and some columns and whatever. It's the fastest publishing platform in the world now. So it is rocket ship fast. The ads load super fast, which matters because you want to talk about affecting your viewability and do people actually see the ad? Well, how many times have you gone to a website and you wait like 15 seconds for the ad to come in? So we wanted to optimize all of the content and the ad content that comes in. That led to a very successful site because it's a good user experience.
Might I take a picture of that?
No,
Or the-
not at all.
I know that dealer principal at the Sioux too.
No, okay, all right. All the better. So the site anatomy says what kind of content do we want on this site. So you can see here, local news, community information, events, special features. The yellow stuff is from your editorial department. The blue stuff actually comes from the sales team. So you start to look at my content mix and go, gee, if we're not selling any of this stuff, our site's never going to be that good. They can't have a good community site without you. You can have an okay news site, but you can't build out a good community site without the sales team. It can't happen.
So we've went to Sioux Today and we've compared it to TV News Watch, and your site is much cleaner than ours. Like it's nicer on the eyes. Like it's. So why is there a difference between your setup and ours?
Well,
Is it just something we can?
it is. I mean, it's whatever the Sioux has, you can do. It's the same technology. It can look identical. You could literally have the identical site. Like we just fired up a site not that long ago in Newmarket. It could have been TV News Watch. Like we fired up a brand new site in a brand new market with a brand new editorial team, and it looks identical to the Sioux because that's kind of the style they picked. I would caution you when you look at a site to check it out on your phone, because we have a tendency to look at the biggest, most beautiful screens we have, and a lot of people, like in our cases, we have markets that are as high as 70% are looking on their phones. And you'll see that a lot of that stuff goes away when you're on the phone and it's just like a strip. Now, if you're going on your phone going, man, this is so cluttered, like why, you know, Sioux is so clean, and then that's certainly a conversation you can have with the digital management in this room. But I would hazard a guess that with the traffic you guys have, it is not getting in your way. Like you have maybe the number 2 or 3 community site in all of Ontario. Like I just want to say, and there are hundreds. So if I came to you before we launched it and I said to you, hey, we have hundreds of sites in the province, I'm going to give you a top 3 site. You'd be like, shit, how do I sell that? Top 3? How's that even possible? We're up here in Thunder Bay in a community that is fairly isolated when you consider communities that are in the GTA. They're right up against other communities and they have all kinds of cross traffic and whatever. How are we going to be like number 3?
Because
Yeah.
you are so isolated. You should be, yeah.
Yeah, I would argue, Peterborough's also really isolated. Sudbury, also really isolated, right? Like there's a whole bunch you look at Guelph, look at the Sioux, right? You look at Guelph, Guelph is not butting up against the GTA, right? Guelph kind of sits on its own. And Guelph has a super active community in terms of its media.
Yeah, but Guelph also has a lot of surrounding around it too, though. There's Kitchener-Waterloo and all those other areas.
Yeah, so you got Kitchener-Waterloo over here that has sort of its dominant media, right? How is it, so let's say Kitchener-Waterloo. That's a daily newspaper. It's a daily newspaper in Kitchener-Waterloo. That newspaper has been there forever. And its domain is The Record. That's a pretty good domain. Less traffic than TB Newswatch. How's that possible? Like, it's a daily newspaper and it has been there forever. That website has been there forever. How is it possible it has less traffic than TB Newswatch? So I would say your site, like I would attack a lot of things before I started trying to make that better because it's so high ranking right now. Yeah, there's a gap between TB Newswatch and Sioux Today, but Sioux Today is an outlier, right? Sioux Today is number 2 in the country and number 1 in the country per capita. So I don't want to compare and decide whether we're succeeding or failing based on how I compare to this anomaly. But if I compare to everything else in the province, man, like the Spec barely gets more traffic than you guys. They serve a population base of about 700,000 and they're one of the oldest papers in the country. That just blows my mind. TheSpec.com, the Hamilton Spectator. Okay, so this is something all of you should have set up or should set up. So do you all have accounts at TB Newswatch? You all sort of subscribe to the email and gone in and set yourself up a user account. If you haven't, please do. Please do. Take time this week, go in, just subscribe. And then when you subscribe, make a few comments and like a few businesses. And you'll see what happens. You'll send up a little description and you'll see we're laying the groundwork for something that looks like a social news network. This is an area where people can come and have a voice. What is the difference? Well, instead of people coming together in my social circle, bound by our common interests, like me, they're all interested in me, so everybody's sort of subscribing to my Facebook feed or whatever, we are bound by our geographical community of interest because we live in the same place. So I might not have the same political leanings as you. I might not also love knitting like you love knitting. I might not be a fan of the same hockey team that you're a fan of, but you know what? We live in the same place and we share a lot of the same concerns. This is the area where that kind of social activity can happen. Not necessarily Facebook, not necessarily Twitter, not necessarily Instagram. Here, in this environment. So for you guys to understand a little bit more about this, everybody go, sign up, put a description, go in, make a few comments on some articles, like a few businesses, take a look at your public profile, and you'll see. Subscribe to your email so that you're at least getting that news like you hope your advertisers are doing on a daily basis. Now, look at this business content. This is the stuff we're missing out on. Look at how much content Mr. Nick Fitzgibbon, who's a young realtor, has put on his site. He has bios of him and his other realtor and his team. He has related articles. He has organizations that he's connected to, charities that he supports. He's got his description and embedded video. He's got likes down here from clients who've endorsed him. Here's an example of the kind of sponsored content he does. The guy did a 5-part series with his wife on renovating a home. And then, of course, because he's a realtor, he has his listings in our real estate section or in our classifieds, which is also linked back to his profile. This content, not only is it highly searchable when people go looking for stuff about Nick or selling homes in Guelph or etc., look at how much one business is adding to the website. Look at how much good local content we're missing by not having guys like these on the website. This has nothing to do with wanting to get some money from Nick Fitzgibbon. This is about getting all this amazing information we would otherwise not have. And how much of this stuff is advertising based? How much of it is an ad? How much of it is blockable?
I don't understand what this is.
Like, does he pay for that?
Yeah, like what is this?
Great question.
Is this on your site? Like,
So this TB News Watch has the ability to do this right now. In your directory, you have what we call a business profile. In that profile, you can build it out in this way. You can write articles like your spotlight articles, your sponsored content, and link it back to this profile. You can take listings if they're auto dealers or job listings for someone or a sales and special or whatever and post it, which will also link back here. All of this stuff you're capable of doing right now. So we're going to walk through how it is that you sell this so you can understand this better. But I wanted you guys to see from a high level how much content one guy brings in at the lowest level of our ad campaigns. One person can bring in all this content.
for the $6 grand.
This part isn't even $6,000.
What?
This part isn't even $6,000. This part, when you buy $6,000 worth of stuff, this part is free.
You know what the only problem is? Getting real people to actually do that. I've got I got the top 2 real estate guys in Thunder Bay, and just don't have the time or
To post their listings. Yeah, to build out all this stuff, we did it.
Yeah.
For the client.
We did it for them.
That's smart if they would do that, because I think they're.
Oh, it'd be amazing, but we did it. As you'll see, as part of the intake process, we got that information. We posted that for Nick. We wrote the articles for him. The listings, admittedly, with realtors,
You still need access to them, though, to write those articles.
yeah, it's a conversation. On our side, it's a conversation that takes about 10 minutes to write that article.
It's like the Thunder Bay Springs.
And sometimes they do it by email. So let's talk about our process. We have 2 calls to sell these programs. We have effectively 2 calls. Now I want you to, for the moment, I want you to suspend your thinking about the way you make calls with your clients today. Like, it works, you guys generate a lot of revenue. I am not telling you that the way you're doing things is wrong. I'm just saying, in order to sell this stuff, we have a methodology that's really effective. It starts with our mandate, which is, why are we in business? Everybody needs to understand why we're in business. It's not complicated, but everybody needs to understand, why are we here? Why are we doing what we're doing? Could you guys all, if someone said, Dougal Media, why are they in business? What's their mandate? Could you guys all? I know. I can tell you right now why we're here, why we're doing what we're doing. Other than, hey, we're here to make money, same as every other business.
Here to provide a service,
Okay. What's the service?
information.
Okay, so we're here to provide information to the community. How come? What do we think is going to happen if we provide information? Or what do we think is going to happen if we don't provide that information?
They're going to go somewhere else?
Well, going somewhere else doesn't, that really speaks to me wanting to make money, right? But if we're providing a service, like a community service, what benefit do we think we're providing to the community by giving them that information?
We're generating interest.
Does it make their lives better? Having that knowledge? Yeah?
Makes them feel more comfortable.
Makes them feel more comfortable. Okay, so maybe, you see we got to drill right down, right?
Like it.
Unless it's a negative news story.
But you can argue it's important to know what's going on in your community. There just has to be a why. You know, why is it important? Why is this a vital service? Why are we doing what we're doing? And it may seem like we don't really need to know that, but our reps found that once they got their heads around that and they could say with confidence why we were in business, it changed their perspective entirely when they're talking about things like Facebook, like Google, like national media that comes into town. Having a mandate is a really important piece. So we'll talk about putting that mandate together. Then they have to have a story. What's your remarkable story? Well, you guys have a remarkable story. if you're like one of the top sites in the entire province, there's something to be said. How did that happen? How did you guys get to be so popular? How are you guys so amazing that you guys have a more traffic site than one of Canada's top 10 daily newspapers? How is that possible? Right? You have a remarkable story to tell. So you need to articulate that. Now, I will take you through what our story is at Village, and you can leverage a lot of that story because we're partners. And it's a pretty amazing story. And then we have an intake. Now, the intake, I can say, if reps have not liked a part of this process, our reps loved this, and they loved this, because a lot of times they didn't have something to say. When they walked into Talk Digital, the conversation went about Facebook, or it went about Google, or what people tend to know, or traffic, or SEO, or something crazy. This killed all that. So they were very happy with this. They were less happy with this. You know, the intake, you're taking information from a client, you're putting it into a form, and you're sending it in to get a proposal bill. And reps were kind of like, really? I gotta take this information in, whatever. So I'm gonna explain to you why the intake is so important, and hopefully you guys will be like, yeah, I'm gonna be doing intakes every time I go out. All right, so the mandate, we just distilled it down to 3 things for us. And you'll have all of this, and you guys can distill it to 1 thing if you want. You guys can brainstorm over this, figure out how you want to do this. We want to positively impact the communities we serve and the lives of those who live there. Pretty straightforward. That's number 1 goal of Village Media. Number 2, we want to ensure transparency and accountability with our public figures and organizations. That's a really important part of a news organization, right? And number 3, we want to work with local business to strengthen the local economy. Why? Because having a strong local economy makes a better community. We all know that. If all your businesses are going bankrupt and you drive downtown and everything's boarded up, that is not good for the community. So having a stronger local economic base is good for the community, and that speaks to number 1. We want to positively impact the communities that we serve. So all the things you just said, I think fit into those, right? This vital service that we provide. Why? What's the purpose? It's these 3 things. And then we talk about the ways in which we accomplish that. So this is a takeaway that I'll leave with you guys. And you guys can think about this. Does this work for us? Is it the same really for us? Or you may have different ways that you go about achieving these things. You may only want one of these things. That's up to you. But our reps all know this is why Village Media is in business, and this is how they accomplish their goals. Then we have a story. So this looks like a lot of words, but most sales calls with our sales reps start with this. They'll have the mandate, hey, you probably know about Village, our goal is this and this. Okay, that's great. That takes about 30 seconds. And then they go into a story. You familiar with Village? No. Hey, do I have a story to tell you? It's crazy. It's a really amazing story. You know the Soo? Well, in our neck of the woods, it's like the Soo. That's like way up. Yeah, I haven't been there since I was like 3. Yeah, okay, well, in the Soo, population of 73,000, there's all kinds of media and stuff, and they had this idea in the Soo that they could gather information about users and gather information about businesses and then connect them in really interesting ways. That was kind of their idea. And then there was this other idea that they could figure out ways that the local businesses could support the community, and the community would in turn support the local businesses. So it was really nice. And generally the media, other media companies said it was ridiculous and it wasn't going to work. And so the Soo said, well, we're going to do it anyway. And by using data, we're going to figure out what people like, and we're going to give them more of that. And we're going to work really hard to present the information in the most efficient ways possible. And if we keep doing this, and this is our long-term goal, eventually we're going to be successful. And other media companies were like, it's not going to work. We stopped selling anything that wasn't using our own data, because we don't know with Facebook what the context is. We don't know what content's around it. We don't know what kind of stuff you're sticking ads in. When we'd buy data saying, oh, this user group is interested in autos, we had no idea if that was true. We had no idea if it was because they happened to skim past an auto article and that was enough. We didn't know what sites this stuff was going to show on. So we thought, we are going to control our own environment. We're going to have very strict rules about our content. We're going to make sure that we only use data that we ourselves can verify. so that people get the most amount of value and that they have the most brand safe environment to put their advertising in. That's what we're going to stick with. And what happened? Well, gee, take a look. Since those, or 16, we have months that we've been as high as 23 million page views from a population base of 73,000. It's the most popular website in that community. But that's not all that happened. Google took notice. Google timed us and said, you have the fastest publishing platform in the world. And so Google came up and filmed a short documentary in Aurelia about this amazing revelation of how we're handling community news. We now have the largest editorial team of any website in the province in the Soo. We have 10 full-time people supported only by a website, which is almost unheard of. So Google then said, you know, we want to run an experiment to take this amazing model and put it into the United States. So we're going to take one of the largest publishers, McClatchy, in the United States, and we're going to bring you two together so you can launch the Village model in Youngstown, Ohio, which lost the daily newspaper. We did that here. We did that amazing transformation that Google is talking about happened right here. And we saw very similar results. We've seen amazing traffic. You had 1 million page views. And now you've been as high as 4. That's unheard of. So this entire story is relevant for you too. And so they start every conversation with this because they want to position themselves in uncontested space. I don't want to be having a conversation about us versus this guy versus this guy versus this guy. I want you to understand what makes us special. And that's where this story came into play. So then we have an intake. Now the intake has a whole bunch of fields that many of which you've seen before as sales professionals, many of which can be filled out without the client. You know, their name, address, phone number, whatever. We actually need this information when we eventually build that profile that you guys saw. So a lot of that information comes from this intake. The intake is really important because we've just finished telling them that the Village model was to gather a lot of information from our advertisers because that's what helps us connect them to our readers. Well, I'm now just proving what I said by gathering a lot of information from you. What we really want in the intake is 2 kinds of information. 1, I want to know as much about their target audience as possible. And 2, I want to know as much about their connections to the community as possible. The rest of the stuff you can probably find out on your own, but I want to know those 2 things. So if anybody's going out with me, I have a few appointments here while I'm in town. It's very important for me when I'm with the client to find out about their target audience and to find out about their community connections. Those are the things that allow us to really put together a great proposal for them.
The owner or the business decision? Like the one that makes the decision? Like
Yeah, I would say,
Like who are we trying to target the owner or are we trying to target the manager that makes the decision?
We're in charge of the advertising.
The advertiser?
yeah.
The owner, a lot of times, doesn't have anything to do with it.
Oh, wow. When you
Yeah,
said
because
connection, I was just thinking of that individual.
Well, the person who's in charge of the advertising should also have knowledge of their connections to the community. So I'm not asking specifically the owner for his personal connections, although that's all relevant. I'm asking for the business's connections to the community, and most businesses will have them. I sponsor a local team. I'm sitting on the board of such and such. We're involved in this fundraising. We do food drive here. We do a coat drive because I'm a heating and air conditioning guy sort of every winter, etc., right? The pivotal conversation tends to be around defining their target audience because most people have not done a very good job of that. And when you sit down with people who are in charge of their advertising, it often goes like this. So who do you target? Oh, well, basically anybody. You know, I'll take money from anyone here, Thunder Bay. We're known by, you know, wide section. You say, well, okay. So when you market to everybody? Yeah, I mean, pretty much, you know, broad-based, you really, is that the most efficient way to market, do you find, like to market to every living person in Thunder Bay? Because, just saying, if you can define your target market, like I'm a furniture store and I am defining my target market as women 33 to 49, because women 33 to 49 are in this domestic situation and they tend to be the ones who make the buying decision when it comes to furniture. Okay, what's the role of the male in that process? He's sort of binary, he's saying yes or no to money, but he doesn't care about color, he doesn't care about fabric, he doesn't care about design. All of that rests with the woman who's in that 33 to 49 bucket. Okay, so let's talk about 33 to 49-year-old female in Thunder Bay. What does she care about? Well, what do you mean? Well, what does she care about in her day-to-day life? Well, she cares if it's purple or if it's corduroy or if it's leather. No, I don't mean with the product. I mean in her life. What does she care about? Well, her kids. Well, what about them? Well, you know, school and, you know, activity, and are they like healthy? And okay, all right. So is that what's really driving her life? Yeah, that's probably the most important thing in her life. Okay, great. How can you demonstrate that you also care about her kids? I don't know. Put up a picture of her kid in my showroom. Right? What if you could demonstrate that you care about the same things that she cares about? Does that help you build trust? Does that help you build credibility?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be amazing? Well, you guys can help them do that. TB News Watch. That's one of the amazing things that you can do on this site. So that process starts with that conversation, and that's the end of meeting number 1. You get that intake, you get that information, you send it in. Here, I would assume maybe it goes to Cora, and presentations get built. So let's take a break. Guys can, you know, grab a coffee, use the restrooms, and we'll go through what the presentations look like.
How long? 15? 10?
Yeah, maybe 10 minutes.
You just showed me a text from the client that said, sure, see you at 9.
Well, that stops me from putting it out to, okay. Doesn't stop me.
That's what the kids love,
Yeah,
Bill.
Tim Hortons in the States does the shits. So I tried to open one up in Elizabeth, Minnesota, which is a 3-hour drive from here, and died.
Is that right, eh? And yet it's like some of their places in the States are just atrocious.
Oh, yeah.
Like you go to the Krispy Kremes.
City
or
of
the-
Duluth does not have a donut place.
Is that right?
They have a Tim Hortons now, in
That's
an
new.
out, kind of bound location.
Where?
Don't even ask me, because I forget what road it's on, but they have one.
How far would that be from here?
3 hours. The border's 40 miles away.
That's it?
Yeah.
We're a border town.
You know all those Port
Oh,
Arthur
no,
blank
we're not.
questions
We're
you were
Francis
asking me?
Border Town.
These
Yeah.
things are asking
We're still considered a border town when it's that close.
So do you still, do people in Thunder Bay still consider it two towns?
1970.
Oh, yes.
No,
Especially the older people. Oh, I live in Fort William.
How can you
Yeah.
be north
So
and
Eddie just
closer?
said
Or Port Arthur.
1970 it became Thunder Bay.
That recent?
Yeah,
It was
Dublin,
three names
Ontario,
were
it's a
Lakehead, the Lakehead.
It used to be
Thunder Bay,
south
three-
to get to the States.
Three names on the
So
ballot.
if Thunder Bay's north, Toronto,
And why
how is
did-
the United
why
States
was it
closer to
Thunder Bay?
Thunder
Was
Bay
there
than
We have a lot of thunder here.
Toronto?
You asked that if it was.
I did.
Yeah.
I was partially kidding when I asked that, but
Especially the people voting on Superior, it's crazy, right?
Like, it comes up
You
on
don't
your
go
age.
out.
The
and
Edmund
tell them
Fitzgerald.
to go out.
right? Getchigumi.
Because he's a sailor,
That's the joke.
right?
So for you, like, do you consider the town really still those two towns?
Yes, definitely.
And do you have a bias one over the other?
Northwood.
Like, did you grow up in the one and
I grew up in Fort William, so
do you still live in Fort William?
no, I've lived there for 27 years.
And is it a lot different, Port
Yeah,
Arthur?
yeah, warmer, older houses.
It's Simpsons,
Nicer people.
Shelbyville versus.
You know, we used to call them Port Arthur girls. That's what we put up girls that come back to Fort William.
People still say I have to go to Fort William today. Oh, and it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, when I first moved here from Southern Ontario,
It's true.
my cousin wouldn't go over to Strathcona. He lived in Westport, and I said, "Well, let's try that Strathcona one, that golf course."
Yeah, no, it's
No, too far, too far. I'm like, dude, like 15 minutes. Like, no, I'm not.
I know it's
Yeah.
pretty funny. I deal with the agencies out of Toronto, so I develop a little relationship with them. So I make a comment. Geez, I gotta go to Westport. And she says, how long does it take to get to Westport? I said, I don't know, about 15 minutes. She goes, I can't get out of this building. in 15
That's right. That's true. I was saying to Cora, like, I can't remember the last time I had a commute under an hour.
Yeah,
And I've had commutes that were 3 hours a day.
yeah.
And here, that
I live in cottage country year round. I'm 22 minutes from this door.
you can get to cottage country in 22 minutes?
But we have to say it the way you would say it.
Southern Ontario.
Yeah, I'm just saying you would just say, we say camp, you
No,
guys say
she's saying it.
cottage.
She's
Yeah.
saying it so he understands.
Well, you think so.
What's you don't say cottage country?
No.
We go to camp,
Can't.
even though
Why,
it's
is
my
it a
house,
t- is it a
everybody
tent?
still calls it camp.
No, it's a place where you take kids, right?
Perry Sound is the.
And some of those
demarcation
camps are
point.
pretty nice.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, as soon as you go past Perry Sound, it's big.
Yeah, there's $1 million
It's like
camps.
submarine and everything, but I lived in Barrie for 7 years, and it took me 5 years to stop saying camp.
That one is
I'd say
almost
cottage, and then when I moved back here,
Yeah, we
it took
say
me another
cottage.
couple of years to like undo it again.
Oh yeah,
so
me too.
All right. Well,
going to the lake.
But there's tons of inland lakes around here, so that's not a big deal, but where can you, if you're living in a center like Toronto, like how long does it take you to
2
get to
hours.
Muskoka? Yeah.
2.5.
Right?
And for me, like 3.5.
So
Yeah.
we've got a
Would
lot
you go
of-
to Skokas or
Yeah.
Wortham?
I wouldn't go to either myself, just because like the driving and it's so commercial. But for me, it's about the same amount of time during rush hour to go to both. Right? It's just horrific. Not like you, 22 minutes. Live there year round. Okay, let's dive in on what products we have that can actually help us do the things that we're going to talk about. So we really only have 3. That's the good news. And all of the digital products we have are funneled into these 3 programs. Now, these 3 programs are nested, which means this one's in this one, and these 2 are in this one. So technically speaking, if you presented this one, you can roll it back to this or roll it back to that, because they're building blocks. They're all sort of, interconnected. So we don't have like a hub over here, and then you have to buy that, and then you have to buy this, and then you have this other thing over here. It's basically like you graduate from one to the other. Here's the other cool thing. As you go from this to this, you get this for free. And then you go from this to this, you pretty much get this for free. So, kind of neat. I'll show you how that works. So this is our Community Hub program. And I think we're scheduled, are we still scheduled to come back after lunch?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we come back after lunch, I'm actually going to get somebody in this room. Somebody in this room is going to volunteer to read through a script. All I got to do is read. Is to read through the script so you can hear what it sounds like. Before you really know all that much about it, you can hear what it sounds like to walk through this presentation. It doesn't take all that long. It sounds kind of technical as I'm going through it, but you'll see it's actually pretty straightforward. Okay, so imagine that you've gone in to see a client and you've said, hey, this is kind of what we're all about. You know, here's our mandate. We're trying to make the community better. We're trying to strengthen the local economic base. That's what we're all about. Okay, great. Here's our story. We partnered with this company out of the Sioux. You know, Google has taken notice. We're revolutionizing community news all over, and it's really important. And then you've asked them a bunch of questions about their business. You've defined their target audience, and you've defined their community connections. You've taken that, you've submitted it. And you get back this beautiful proposal. You go back a week later to the client and you say, hey, thank you again for all that information you gave me. Marketing team, you know, put their thinking caps on, and we came up with a program we think works really well for you. And I'm going to walk you through it. So here is Raglan Village Adult. Does that seem... It is, but does that seem weird to you? An adult and retirement community?
Yes,
That
yes.
sounds like 4 stars and
Exactly. I felt the same way.
As soon as I saw the adult, I'm like,
I felt the same way, but I don't know. That's
that may be interested.
well, maybe they're geniuses, right? But every time I see that, it's like that seemed really weird. But that's their tagline. I thought that was odd.
They swing when they're that old,
Yeah.
they just don't know they're swinging.
Okay, so the first slide, all we do is we're just reconfirming. We get a lot of information about readers, right? There's a lot of things we can tell about readers. And we get a lot of information from our advertisers. You guys will remember that because I asked you a bunch of questions when we came in, right? So there's a method to this. We try to use this information and use this information to figure out ways to bring them together. So here, this one's for Guelph. So you can see, as you can see, quite a bit less than what you guys have. So this is just an overview. I told you in my first meeting we were the #1 online media in the marketplace. I just wanted to show you what that actually means. It's not just about page views. We also have a lot of email subscribers. We also have a lot of followers. We get a lot of people who visit us through different kinds of devices. And as you can see, depending on the device, like here in tablet, we get an awful lot of seniors looking at us via tablet, you know, and maybe a lot less seniors who are looking at us on a phone. But we get a ton of young people who are looking at us on mobile. So the first thing that we do with all of our advertiser partners is we connect them to what we call a hub. So the hub is really their central location on our platform. And it's through that hub that we're able to connect them to all the different parts of our site. So what does this hub have? Well, it's got all sorts of neat stuff, and you'll recall that I asked you about a lot of this stuff. It has a description of your business, of course, and if you have any jobs that you've posted or sales and specials or anything like that, it will show up here. You can actually have bios for everybody who works here, which is a really nice way for people to understand more about your business. We also have things like a photo gallery and embedded video, but it's got other things too. If you're connected to local community organizations, we will connect them from this page to a page for that community organization. If you're supporting a local charity, we will connect you from this page to that page for the local charity. If somebody comes along and likes you, you can see 10 readers have liked this business, they come along and like you, their profiles actually sit at the bottom of this page, so people can actually see the real people who've endorsed your business. So this piece is really important. It's very easy for people to contact you through this form. As you see, they have a contact form. There's other different ways they can contact you. And we link back to your website. Why does that matter? Well, we have a great domain. Because we're a news organization and because we're highly credible, that's really good for search engines. They view us as also being highly credible. So when we have a link going from our site to your site, it lets search engines know you're credible too. All from this page. That page sits in a category. So if you're a real estate agent, you might sit in, a category for real estate agents. And all of our premium listings, those advertisers that we gather information from, get preferred placement on that page. From there, we have a channel. In this case, the channel is real estate. And all of those preferred listings also percolate up to this page as well. Now, we're not saying that people come to our site and go, okay, start with a channel, click on that channel, then go to a category, click on a category, then find a business, click on it. People don't typically work that way. But by having all of these different pages and with different content on each page, it gives us a lot more ways to be found via search. When people are searching just for real estate in Thunder Bay, or people are searching for real estate agents in Thunder Bay, or any of those long tail search terms that people use when they're searching crazy stuff, we want to get as much content as we can so we can be found by those searchers. Here's something else that we do. It's very difficult for businesses to really explain why they're great businesses to deal with. It's very difficult for businesses to talk about the kind of things they do in the community. It's very difficult for businesses to educate people about their industry. Those are hard things to do. We give you an opportunity to do that in what we call a spotlight article. This is an article of sponsored content, so we write it for you, but we reach out to you and ask you questions that give us information that allow us to put a good piece together. So for example, you told me during our first call that you guys are really involved in the food drive. That's fantastic. We could do an article on the food drive with a quote from you and a link back to your site. Now you might say, what's the purpose? Well, we can do a very interesting article on the food drive that people will want to read. And you, by association, will be attached to that food drive through this article. So it's a little different than just running an ad saying, hey, I got 50% off. You're running an article that's telling people you're a good business to deal with. This one, we still have to discuss sort of how we're going to do it. In our markets, we've decided to include what we call our site rotator. So this is a share a voice ad, which basically just gets shared. Whatever impressions are there are shared amongst whatever advertisers have it. So if you run this on every page and you only have one advertiser, that advertiser is going to get a lot of exposure, right? So we've decided to include this because we had a lot of inventory. We can talk about, Cora and I are still going to talk about whether we include that here or it's some other unit. But as it is with our program, everybody gets what we call a logo ad. All we're trying to do with this logo ad is build top of mind awareness for that brand. That's it. We're not trying to generate clicks. It's not a call to action. I'm trying to build top of mind awareness for this brand. We want them to see it, see it, see it, see it, see it. So when they actually see a full-fledged ad or they're reading an article about it, it's already sitting there. We're trying to build awareness for these brands. That's what we do. So if you take a look, we have your optimized community profile that we talked about. It's nested in a category and a channel, and of course you're surfaced as a premium listing there. We have something called Power Leads. That basically just says that on all those pages, there's an opportunity for them to email you from those pages. Nice and easy. We have a spotlight article, which is a featured article written about your business. We have 50,000 native ad units. Native ad unit is simply a headline embedded in a news article. It's just a headline. It'll be the headline of this article that we write about your business, embedded in a news article. You guys have seen it when you go on a big news site. You're reading down and you'll see bloop, a headline to another article. Sort of when you're halfway through, hey, you might be interested in this. That's what that native ad unit is. Sending people to that spotlight article about you. You get 50,000 of those impressions. You get a $1,000 posting credit. That's something else we need to make sure is okay for your markets. But we give them $1,000 of posting credits in our classified. So if they want to post sales, specials, job postings, whatever, we have your businesses recommended to targeted users via our dashboard. So we actually have the ability to suggest businesses in a variety of ways. Now, this is hard to do at the very beginning when you don't have a lot of businesses or you don't have a lot of users with user profiles. So I have to take a look and see what stage you guys are at. But typically, if somebody has liked a business, we're able to say, oh, okay, well, if they've liked the business, maybe this other user might also like the business. If you both are connected to the same community organization, we can say, oh, you might like this business. They're also connected to the same community organization. And then we have a site rotator community display advertising with a minimum of 10,000 monthly ad impressions. That's, again, in our markets. The value, if you price all of these things out, is $5,400 a year. So we make a big point of really selling this at $5,400. People are like, yeah, $5,400, that seems kind of pricey. Well, we're offering it for $2,400. It's $200 a month on a 12-month commitment. And people are like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. Or you can get all of that for free. How? Well, let's take a look at what you told us. So this tends to be a summary of what they told you about their target audience. Oh, and it looks complicated, but it's actually really straightforward. I'm predominantly female, predominantly desktop. Here's my ages that I'm sort of looking at. Then we have a brief summary here. I'm really targeting Thunder Bay and the surrounding area. Here's sort of the dates, times. It's like this season or that season, whatever it is they told you. We basically replicate that on this page. And based on that, we will recommend some products. So I've actually got a bunch of slides here which basically have every single product that we have. Most of the proposals we have will have like 2 or 3. So if you take a look at this one, we have page takeovers. It tells what it is, and then it says why we included it here. So really, you can literally read through these. Page takeovers provide high impact display used to build immediate awareness in a dominant above the fold position. We recommended that for you because you're looking for a high impact campaign to be top of mind with your audience. So we're basically just taking stuff that they told you and translating it into products. Now, you get to the final page of this, we spell it out. We highlight the ones that they're going to get. We have a little summary over here. And then you get a total value of $12,000. These are all placeholders, so don't pay attention to the numbers too much. And then they say your cost $500 a year, plus we're throwing in $5,400, so you get $17,000 of value for 6. That's kind of overstated. But it's often really big numbers that turn into a really small number. So you can buy $200 a month, you can just go and get a hub, and that's a good deal. But where it becomes an amazing deal is when you spend $500 a month, because then you get a whole bunch of display, and you get that entire hub for free. So the net result was when our people went out, first of all, they were getting a lot more of the content that we wanted them to get. Second of all, they really didn't sell $200 campaigns anymore. Why would you? Like if I just commit for a year and I just go to $500 a month, I'm going to get like double what I was going to get before. So now our guys, by and large, sell $6,000 plus campaigns. And it doesn't have to be $6,000. It can be 8, it can be 7, it can be 9, depending on the recommendation, depending on what it is you're looking for. So we ended up selling way more of this. So our guys were selling, these $200 campaigns, and they'd get $3,000, $4,000 sold in a month of these kinds of campaigns. It'd be a lot of work. So we launched, we trained, our first training session was in April. And so, actively selling since like the middle of April. And we, I think, are up to $800,000 now of these campaigns that they've sold since then. So with that group of, 7. So it's really good. Now, they're still selling some of that ad hoc stuff the short run campaigns. They're still generating that kind of, that actually didn't go away. They've just layered in this amount of money on top of it. Okay. Now what's neat for everybody who has a hub is they can actually go and generate their own report. So this is in your platform right now. So if a business has a hub, they can actually go in to their business dashboard, click this thing called a report, and actually see how many people viewed their directory, how many people looked at their articles, et cetera, which is nice. So that's a feature that you guys don't actually have to do. So the hubs were great. We've sold a lot of them since we launched it, which is great. The reps have gotten very, very comfortable saying their mandate, saying their story, asking for the intake, and then walking through the presentation when they get it back from head office. That's basically how it goes. Mandate, story, intake, get the presentation back, walk through it, virtually the same time, same walkthrough every single client. Client says yes or no. Community Leaders was a program. This is what I'm going to be presenting to people. I think I have one later today, and then I have a few tomorrow. Community Leaders is a program where it's limited, it's vertically exclusive, so you would only have one auto dealer or one lawyer or one dentist or whatever. And it's unlike any other program they can do with any other kind of media. And certainly, if you're talking about Facebook or Google or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, there's nothing in that world that looks like this. What this does for a business is really unique and a great differentiator for them with their competitors. It's also really good for the community. So this helps solve our mandate of making the community a better place and strengthening the local economic base. Let's talk about what the Community Leaders program is. With Community Leaders, we effectively go out and create a new editorial topic, and then we invest money in a local freelance journalist to provide an article in that topic every week for a year. For example, let's say we want a topic on the local environment, environmental news around Thunder Bay, because we think that's really important. We don't have the funds to actively do that every week as part of our usual news cycle. So we're going to take money out of an ad campaign and we're going to pay it to a local journalist who's going to go out every week and do a featured article on the local environment. And we're going to call that section Grounded. And we're going to put that section under our features. So we're going to have this new section called Grounded, and every week there's going to be an article about the local environment. And trust me, those articles typically are amazing. So, problem is we don't have the money to do it. So we go to an advertiser and we say, hey, listen, your target audience cares deeply about the environment, or about kids and local sports, or about arts and culture, etc., etc., etc. We have about 14 defined topics. Your target audience really cares about this. We want to show that you care about it too. So here's what we're going to suggest. We're going to partner with you. And we're going to go out and we're going to broaden our local news coverage because of you. Now, you don't have any say as to what we cover because it's editorial. You can't pick up the phone and say, oh, I want you to do an environmental article on so-and-so. There's a wall between the two. But it's going to take place because of you. And your ads are going to say, we have partnered with TV News Watch to broaden local news coverage. That's going to say that on all these ads. And where those articles sit, you will own that entire section. So here you see under features, here you can see in Guelph we've already sold 7 of these. So we launched this a few months ago. We have 7 sold, and you can do the math. They're all somewhere between $25,000 and $35,000 each. So that's been pretty good in the market. And you'll see here's what the sections are: arts and culture, following up, grounded, helpers, pursuit, rooted. These are these new special sections that we invented, partnered with local advertisers to make possible. Here's a list of all of the subjects that our editorial felt had enough legs that we could do 50 compelling articles on them. So when we started off this conversation with editorial, editorial was like, no way. This sounds like sponsored content. Well, yes, it's not sponsored content, it's supported content. We're using their money to give to you to do your thing. We don't tell you what to write. We have no say on what you write. It just has to be in the defined scope that we talked about. So if we say the scope is local sports, you know, don't do something on the moon landing, right? We ask that it be in the scope of local sports. But other than that, it's totally over to you. Well, so editorial started thinking, So I basically just grew my editorial budget, and I can provide more of the content that we otherwise couldn't afford to provide. Well, take a look at all of these sections every week, providing detailed articles in these sections. How much bigger has your site just become? How much more important has your site become? How much of a positive impact are you now having on the community? You talked about the service we provide. This is a big part of that service, a really big part of that service that we just are not providing today. These are all underserviced categories. So here's what we discovered. We discovered that the people who go and read the articles in these special sections are our most loyal readers. They spend the most time on site, they go the deepest, they come back the most often. What does that mean? It means that you're going out and giving local advertisers the opportunity to connect with our most loyal audience on a regular basis in the most powerful way by saying, hey, all that stuff you really care about, the environment, people in our neighborhoods, helpers, people who are just helping other people selflessly, all that stuff your target audience cares about, you are now showing them you care about it too. Every time they're coming in there and they're reading those articles and feeling good, and believe me, when you see the number of shares we have, just thousands, and you see the kind of comments like, this is the kind of stuff we need to be writing about, they're feel-good articles. They make you feel great. And they're surfacing articles on people that really deserve to be written about and otherwise would not be written about. So let's take a look at what a community leader's proposal looks like, because effectively, the community leader's process is identical. You have your mandate, you state your story, you do your intake, you submit it, head office produces a beautiful community leader's proposal, you take it back and you simply walk through it slide by slide, according to a script. It's really straightforward. So here, with our community leaders, we started off by just restating what they've already told them. We're number one. It's not close. So we're really just establishing, hey, before you start considering us like this media or that media or whatever, I just want to put us in our proper position. We're number one, uncontested. Here we are. We have lots of great partners. So your slide, obviously you don't partner with yourself. So your slide would be slightly different, but your slide would have Village instead of Dougal Media. But you can see, obviously if Rogers has enabled us, and now McClatchy and Glacier have enabled us and our programs for their national digital strategy, it's a pretty good endorsement. And then we talk about this. You could say, well, who cares? Because editorial is a part of community leaders, it's really important that they understand, unlike Facebook, unlike Google, unlike Twitter and Instagram, we have rules. We have really strict rules. And this is why we're so important. And this is why our environment is so brand safe. Because we have regulations. It is not simply unbridled, anybody writes whatever they want to write. And tell me that the content around your advertising doesn't matter? Well, if that's true, let's just all go sell the porn site. Like really, if it doesn't matter, right? Or let's just go sell a gaming site. Or let's sell a human trafficking site. Doesn't matter, right? Like it doesn't matter what the other content is. I'll just stick my ad there. My ad is so powerful that it will just outdo any message that's around there. So it doesn't matter if the message happens to be hate speech or racist. It doesn't matter. It could be calling for genocide. As long as my ad is 50% off, it won't matter. Of course it matters. That's why we have associations filled with people who are all getting paid just to regulate this kind of thing. That's why our editorial department fights so hard to not be influenced. And look, it's frustrating for sales reps. It's super frustrating. Hey, I got a client, man. He's got something happening pretty good. Like, can we just go out and do an article on this guy? Like, come on. I mean, how hard is it? It's good content, right? And you can't understand, why can't you be reasonable? Why can't you understand that this is going to make my job so much easier if you could just do a damn article on this guy? Because editorial understands that is the first step. And then beep, 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 beep. It's like, hey, my guy really didn't like that article you just ran on the lawyer who's corrupt and whatever, because that's like his partner, and you got to pull that down.
What about when, I mean, our news department does this all the time, because we gotta get phone
Yeah.
calls. If you're gonna do an article on someone in that industry, 9 out of 10 times, you should pick someone that doesn't even advertise with us. So why wouldn't you pick someone who is advertising? If you're gonna do the article anyway on that industry, why not pick, you know?
Yeah, so
I get more calls and more pissed off at
So I want to say that if there is a problem in the industry, you have hit the nail on the head. So I'll give you a case, I'll give you a great example. We had a client who has like a racetrack, and he had an event, and he was like, it's relevant, right? A lot of people want to go, people want to know, and he's right. It's actually good content for us, and there's no reason that we couldn't do editorial content that says, we're just going to go out there and get all the facts. You're not going to influence us. We're going to write anything we want, but we're going to go out and get all the facts because people want to know the details of that event. So that was his argument. He had a competitor who does not spend money with us. He does. He spends a lot of money. He had a competitor who does not spend money with us who had a similar event. An editorial covered the competitor, a similar event, but not the advertiser, right? And their argument was, well, it looks like sponsored content. He's all over the place. He's advertising. We can't be influenced. He called in, whatever. So I want to say, at the risk of alienating editorial everywhere, that is completely incorrect. I believe if you are going to do what I'm going to call a puff piece, and I'm going to call it a puff piece because, whether editorial accepts this or not, there are certain elements that you are not going to include in that piece no matter what. So for example, when you go out and do a feature on a new business in town, an editorial feature, right? And they probably never pick one of your clients to do this. They go out and do an editorial feature on a new restaurant or a new whatever. When they go out to do that feature, you know that if they see like a cockroach over there, they are not putting that in the article. So it is not totally unconstrained. It's a puff piece. It's meant to be positive. It's meant to provide positive information. So my argument has always been, if you're going to do a puff piece, start with the people you know the best, which is your advertising group. Follow the same guidelines that you would follow for a non-advertiser. You are not going to have that kind of influential interaction with the advertiser. Follow the same guidelines, do it the same way, but start with your advertiser base.
do me a favor, you meet with the news director, can you tell them that?
I will. And they won't like it.
Their idea of news is, retail doesn't happen in small mom and pop stores, it only happens in the mall and chain stores. And that battle's been going on. They told me to my face, if Intercity Mall invests $1 million in expansion, that's news. If a local car dealership spends $5 million and hires 20 people, that's not news.
Which is incorrect, right? Because if we go back to our mandate, right? And it's not incorrect. They are right to say we don't want to be told. They're right. They can't be told. We know that. But we're not telling them. What we're saying is you need to cover something on the basis of whether or not it's valuable and useful and relevant to the people reading the content on our site. And local jobs and local investment and local growth in a local business, you check all those boxes. It is absolutely relevant, it is useful, it is good information, right? A local event that is happening at an advertiser's location is probably great local content. And we should not preclude ourselves from covering that content because we have a paid relationship with them. So if I feel like there's one more evolutionary step to make, it's this. So that is a battle that is still raging in our own markets, right? I am not letting that one go, but one step at a time. It took a while to get community leaders in place, And now that they're seeing that they're our most popular articles on our network, they got behind it. But I can tell you, the first step of community leaders was like, we're not doing it. And now they look back and say, well, Guelph, went from like 1.7 to 2.4. We get 10% growth from community leaders, and our most loyal guys are going and reading these articles. They're the most shared articles on our site. It's probably not a bad thing. And it's true, the advertisers never tell us what to write. So, not a bad thing. We made our site better. But it took months to get to that. So I'm hoping when we have the conversation with your editorial that we can use our evolutionary trail and say, you don't have to go through it too. Like, we've already been through it with our own. So you can talk to our own editor-in-chief, who is staunchly, for all the things you've just said you're frustrated with, he's staunchly on board with that, and he came around to community leaders. My next piece is exactly what you're talking about. We've already had like 5 conversations about it. I've lost all 5, but I'm planning to have 5 more, and I will mention it today, if for no other reason than to get their feedback. So, in the meantime, we have community leaders. So again, we go through the page views. As you can see, they do a snapshot of, in this case, Sue Today, and it just does the same sort of breakdown. This stuff's really straightforward, probably not dissimilar to what you're doing. And then there's just an overall description. And basically what community leaders says is, we're really good strategic storytellers. That's who we are in media. We do a great job of this. You guys represent media that are amazing strategic storytellers already. Whether it's TV, whether it's radio, this is what you're experts at. Strategic storytelling, you're fantastic at it. To give you an example, if I asked any of you guys to go out and cover a story, a serialized story of which there's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 entries in that story, my guess is you would not do a great job. You might make it over obvious, you might miss the main angle of the story, you might not even have an angle of the story, you might just recite the facts. People in news who do this for a living get really good at knowing how to tell something in a way that it goes in and is really engaging. They're great at it. You know who's not great at it? People on social media. They're terrible at it. They're awful at it. Social media is really good at sharing stuff that's goofy, that somebody from somewhere has told you about, or letting you know about an event that's happening because they took some pictures. But strategic storytelling is a skill. People go to school for it, people practice it, people do it for years and years, and they get amazing at it. And so it's like the sales profession, running, writing, sales, everybody thinks everyone can do it.
Yeah.
What do you do? Oh, I'm a sales rep. Oh, let me tell you about sales. Why? Have you ever sold? Well, no, but everybody knows. No, you don't. You really don't. Unless you get in and out of your vehicle, unless you go in and talk to people who are already on the defensive, who think you're only there to take money from them, unless you learn how to have that conversation, learn how to match them up with the right advertising, and learn how to deliver results, you don't know anything about it. And on the editorial side, it's the same thing. And for editorial people, it drives them bonkers that everybody thinks, oh, I could do that easy. I could easily write a puff piece. I could write a breaking news story. How hard is it? Get some facts, you write them down, and bloop. Not true. Strategic storytelling is an art. And you guys are amazing at it. You have a company that does this extremely well. That is fundamental to the Community Leaders Program. So what's the process? We have a bunch of components, and it does all of these things. We gloss over this pretty fast. It's a proposal that they can all choose to look into in more detail if they want to. But all we're telling them is there's 5 steps to this program, and it accomplishes a whole bunch of stuff. Let's talk about those 5 steps. It starts off with a sponsored section. So you explain a little bit about how we write an article, an editorial article in an underserviced section that their target audience really cares about. So, as an example, we went out to a car dealer. He has 2 brands. He has Nissan and he has Infiniti. Obviously, they are 2 different target audiences. So I asked him, how are you reaching those target audiences and demonstrating that you really understand them and that you care about what they care about? He said, hey, great question. Well, I'm really into the art scene for the Infiniti side, because the people who are buying Infinitis in this market, higher income bracket, they tend to be very involved in the arts, they have more disposable income, arts really matter to them. So we sponsor a lot of stuff in arts, we do advertisement in programs at the theater, etc. Okay, that's great. Sounds awesome. What about on the Nissan side? Well, a little more family-oriented. It's a slightly different demographic. We're going to appeal to local sports because we want to let people know that we really care about their kids. We really care about these grassroots movements in our community. We want to show them that we're part of that by supporting it. Okay, that's awesome. We want to show you how you can do that with community leaders. So we explain to them, we want to do an article on either arts and culture or local sports from a human interest side. Really interesting stuff, not just event coverage or, the blue team played the white team, but this coach has been in building character for 30 years. Or take a look at this local director and all he's been through. We're going to do a story like that every week. And we're going to let people know that this story was made possible by you. Well, they liked it a lot, and they took both. So this is a car dealer that has not spent a single dime on that website in 3 years of conversation. That is now spending $50,000 to do 2 CLP programs. And I'll tell you, the articles that we're producing through those are fantastic. They're great articles. They're articles that needed to be written, stories that needed to be told. So 50 weekly articles. The content, we make a point of saying it is at the sole discretion of the editorial department. So if you see something you don't like, that's too bad. The beauty of this program is that it runs through the news feed. It runs through our new social channels. So the coverage is amazing. The moment you have anything to say about it, it's sponsored content and the coverage goes down to here. So you want it to be like this. It's good for you that it be like this because you want people to believe that this is editorial content and not content that you guys are writing. You have 100% of the ads in that section. And the amazing thing is, in this program, they don't pay for any of them. Any ads that are generated in that section that they own, they're free. They don't have to pay for them. They pay for display ads all over the site, but not in their section. So if their section has a really popular article, all those ads that get generated, they didn't pay for them. Maximum exposure, we just made the point of it goes through the main news feed, it goes through the social streams and the headline email. And then of course, we do something kind of cool. We promote that section through Facebook, through other sites, through whatever. We promote that section to just sort of send the message out that we have this new section outside of our site. Sometimes we even do offline ads promoting that section. And every time we do an ad promoting the section, we mention them for free. So in this case, we have 2 million display ads run of site that we included in this bundle. We typically include 1 million. This proposal was, I think, $36,000, but for our $26,000 proposal, we have 1 million display ads they can use any way they want. It's run of site display ads. We also allow them to do a survey on our site. Survey is pretty straightforward. Here, injured in a car accident, click here to find out what you need to do next. So we run a bunch of alert banners, it sends them to a survey, and it says, hey, what would you do if you're in a car accident? 4 choices. Do you know about this? 4 choices, whatever. Basically a survey, it could be a quiz structure, it doesn't matter. Why is this a good thing to have? Because if you're, say, a realtor or a dentist or a lawyer or even a retailer, you now get to say that you do market research. And most of them absolutely do not do their own market research. Oh, we partnered with the #1 media company to do market research so that we can inform our marketing decisions and we can provide better services to you. You know who isn't doing market research? That guy, my competitor. I'm doing market research. And guess what I learned? I learned X, Y, and Z. What else CLP does is it allows you to change the conversation with your clients. Oh, we're very into the arts and culture scene as I'm selling you an Infinity. We're very into arts and culture. You may have seen the article 2 weeks ago on Guelph Today, which talked about, local so-and-so conductor, and well, it was fascinating. That's the kind of stuff we think really needs to be told. That's a very different client conversation you're having. So most of our CLP partners want to have a different client conversation because what they're selling is largely commoditized. They know there's not a huge difference between my product and that guy's product over there, or my commission rate and that person's commission rate, or my dental hygiene program and that person's dental hygiene program. So I'm constantly trying to move myself into uncontested space. This allows me to do that, to have a different kind of conversation with my clients. Now, we talked about the Community Hub. It's in the CLP too, also for free. There you can see all the hub slides that we walk through. We talk about spotlight articles. Instead of one, we have 4. We do one every quarter for our CLP guys because they have more things to talk about. And then, of course, we have the site rotator, also free. And then here's an example where we did a post on our social stream to our followers, and we just say, check out our new feature, following up. And down here, we partnered with CBI Home Healthcare to bring you stories. It's great. Like, all of this stuff is free. Imagine having this kind of messaging going on around the community. We've partnered with your business to bring you stories and updates about people previously featured in the news. So, give you an example with this following up section. Following up is literally following up on people who were in the news 6 months ago. Well, we would never do that. Like, we just don't have the resources to follow up on all those news stories. But they're amazing stories, stories of adversity, stories of triumph. These are really great stories. So we have a personal injury lawyer who said, you know, I'd like to be part of that. Because we're trying to show our clients that we're with them every step of the way. That we don't.
Extra billing in?
What's that?
Get some extra billing in for the lawyer?
Yeah, that's what you want. We're with you every step of the way, and we'll, that's 7 more hours. I get to bill you. No, their point was, it's not just about the settlement for us. It's about what happens afterwards. It's about the long term. So this turned out to be a great fit. And these stories are amazing. Because you ran this news story about, this thing happening. Oh, I just opened an addiction center, for example. But I don't know, did it work? Was it any good? And then 6 months later, you realize, oh, wow, this guy's now treated 460 people. That's a great story we otherwise never would have told.
What do you do for, no amount of advertising can make a bad business a good business. So is there a conversation about when you go to target somebody like community leader, and this guy's service is terrible. He may support arts and he may support things, but his business is terrible in the back end. Is that ever
it does.
a conversation?
Yeah, it does. That's a great point. So we only have, I've limited it in most of our markets to 10. Even though we have 14 topics, I've limited it to 10 because our goal is once we get 10 people is to form a community leaders board where we invite the mayor, we invite the local politician, and we sit down with our community leaders and say, what other stuff should we be covering? Are there offline initiatives we can get involved in where we can really make a difference? So I don't really want to do that with a guy who's not a good member of the community. He's ripping people off. He's got a bad reputation. We have an expression. We can't make community leaders. We can only recognize them, right? So if you have somebody like that, my suggestion would be seldom display. And just imagine at one point, you'll probably form your own community leaders board. I hope you would. And you don't want to have that guy on the board. It just, it 100% does. Now we are filming, we did a promotional video for community leaders. We just finished filming, so now we're in the editing stage with 6 or 7 community leaders that we just did in Guelph. And they talked about the program and why they got involved in the program. I think that would be really useful for you guys. Not only could you show your clients that, hey, take a look, this is what we're building now, but I think it would also help you guys feel a little bit better about the program. So here you could see, sorry, when we translated it to Google Slides from PowerPoint, it kind of screwed things up a bit. But basically you have your sponsored section, which has all the topics, articles, whatever. You have, in this case, 2 million display units, but you'd have 1 million most likely, 100,000 alert banners, 4 spotlights, and then some related external promotion. If you price this one all out, it's $5,200 a month, and they sold it for $3,000. Yours priced out at, I think, just under 4, like $39.99 kind of thing. So $4,000 a month, priced out at $22,000. So it's almost 50% off. And the reason is because you pay for the display advertising, you pay full pop for that. And you pay for your alert banners, and basically everything else is free. So our argument is, if you're going to do display advertising anywhere, whether it's outdoor or whatever, if you're going to do display online, why wouldn't you do display where you get all this other intrinsic benefit at no charge, where it repositions your business in the community? So Just want to leave you with this in terms of the presentation. This is 1 month in a CLP, and I picked an average CLP. I just went out and grabbed literally a CLP. So some of the numbers were good, some of the numbers were like average. 11,000 times their articles were seen and read. So 11,000 times their articles in their section in that month were read. 41,000 times photos attached to those articles were viewed. Now remember, when they're looking at these photos or reading that article, all they're seeing around that stuff is the advertisers' ad units. They get the wallpaper, they get the inline big boxes, they get the we're part of community leaders, all that rest of that stuff. 986 times those articles were shared. Now, we've had an article, I've mentioned it many times, Cora's heard it many times. We run the spectrum, right? Some articles are shared 50 times. We've had an article on turtle crossing in our environmental section that was shared over 17,000 times. Pretty good. Goes to show you what I know about editorial. It was like the second article they wrote, and I was like, really? Like, that's the best you could do? Is like turtle crossing, like it's early days. I want the client to be really impressed. And they're like, hey, shut up, man. Like, it's editorial, what do you know? You know, sales guy, you go back over there. So I'm like, yeah, okay, let's just see how it does. 17,000 shares. I was wrong. They were right. Turtles are popular. 75,000 site rotator ads, 178 profile views. We actually ran 100,000 house ads for that section. It was in our interest. Rather than run remnant ads that don't make a lot of money, we ran house ads, so obviously it was really good for them, and they were mentioned in all of them. 131 times they read their spotlight. So the spotlight did not go live that month. So those are carryover views. In the month that it went live, they got quite a few more views, but I just thought, I'm not going to doctor it. I'm just going to say what it is. 415 clicks to their website, 18,000 retargeted ads, 84,000 ads that ran on our network. And then next month they run a community survey. So as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on in the month of Community Leader. We partner with Rogers, and Rogers has Kitchener, and we have Guelph, and they're sort of sitting like this. And there is a lawyer who is in Kitchener. You guys will really appreciate this story. There's a lawyer that's sitting in Kitchener who wanted to advertise in Guelph that we could not sell into Kitchener because he was already a client of Rogers. So there's a do not approach list. But we could sell him into Guelph if we wanted to. So we went to see that guy and we pitched him Community Leaders for Guelph, and he really liked the idea and he purchased it. Now he was already purchasing stuff from Rogers, different stuff, whatever, online, on their website. Display ads. He ran Community Leaders for 3 months. He went back to Rogers and said, listen, I want the same program that I'm running in Guelph because my program's okay in Kitchener. I'm running all this display, but you know, I'm spending like $15,000 more in Guelph, but I'm getting way more bang for my buck. Like just the amount of stuff I'm getting and the kind of conversations I'm having are just way different. So why would I just do display with you guys? I'd rather spend more and actually get the same kind of thing that I'm doing for Guelph. So that was helpful for reps to see, I think, that they have a client who really had two, both on Village platforms, and thought Community Leaders gave him a lot more bang for the buck, which is, you know, inevitable. Okay, so that's an overview of the programs. So as you can see, it looks like there's an awful lot to distill. With our reps, we went through it in exactly the same way. And I could say at this stage where you're at right now, our reps were all thinking, I am never going to sell those two programs. Right? So everybody was sort of in the room, like, that's great, I get it, that makes sense, but like, come on, how do I get from there to sitting in front of a client with the spotlight on and not look like an idiot, right? So we put a script together.
I don't think it's so much the value in what you present, it's just taken away from another media that they're comfortable with, their relationship with. Because they perceive us as one entity. Even though we sell 5 products, you're
Right.
the Hill, they're the Chronicle, we're Magic Giant. So that's the dilemma we face
Right.
in a lot of situations. They don't want to give you all the money because you know, I got to spend some money over here.
Right.
So, and that's been the same way for the last 40 years.
So that for me is the issue, right? Like, I think you make a great point. The issue is not, can you read through a script? Because when you come back, you're going to see, reading through the script, you're going to sound like experts, like almost immediately. It's not so much of it is done in the presentation that simply reading through a page and a half, you end up sounding like you can make a very compelling case for why to do this. The problem is people have budgets in different ways. For example, people have budgets by rep. We discovered that in the Metroland world, which was a terrible discovery because then we ended up sending 7 reps to the same guy. And we did find that while the guy was very unhappy with that, we yielded a much higher amount from that particular client. So, you know, I mean, I'm of two minds in that scenario. But what they found was that people had budgets for you. Like, I'm only going to give you X dollars, right? And I feel like I've given you enough, so if you want more, but if you came in right after, I might give you, I can keep your dollars, and now I can give new dollars for a new person. So that was a discovery for us that was peculiar because we really thought that budgets were budgets, right? And as it turns out, that wasn't the case. Or they do it by company. I've given your company enough, right? Now I got to give this company some more. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to push this into space where they might be spending other kinds of dollars. They might be spending sponsorship dollars and not know how to actually leverage that and do good for their business. They might be spending online money. Well, they're almost assuredly spending online money somewhere else. We're trying to go out and capture some of those dollars. But we need to think through the best way to go after the best clients for this kind of stuff. The low-hanging fruit for me is clients who are not spending a ton or not spending any on digital whatsoever, so you know they're spending digital somewhere, but not with us, or guys that were spending and aren't anymore. Those are the best guys. So this has been amazing for going out to, for Rogers, for example, when they go out to people who used to spend a lot of money with radio or with TV, they have the same kind of mix you guys do, and then didn't anymore. And so now it gave them something to go back to and say, okay, now I'm going to sell you something completely different. We're going to evolve your spend into this. So I'm not saying without looking at your client base, who suits what, but I think the low-hanging fruit says we got to be able to identify 10 people that can be CLP partners out of all of the people that we have without wholly cannibalizing from the revenue that we're already getting. And we have to be able to go out and get a whole bunch of people who really aren't spending money with us. Maybe because it's too big a ticket item to spend for radio or for TV, but at $6,000 for the year, there's a whole bunch of people maybe we can go back to. So that's an analysis that needs to take place. You guys can figure out, do you want to, like for CLP, I would recommend you go with Cora, and having the two of you there, I think you guys will do a really good job of getting through these presentations, and she might have some of the expertise needed depending on what questions they ask. But you guys can decide, right? Any other questions around how you might go to market and what you might come across when you do?
It's just getting into the call, because that to me is the toughest part of this. Is I think once you show the value and the rationale and reasoning behind why you can take away from this sponsorship or that online investment and make it a complete approach, that's the hardest part. I've got a car dealer that I think perfect. He's spending. There's a national car online program that's going through the country right now that he's trying out, specifically targeting car dealers. I don't know if that's Facebook, if it's online or what, but he'd be perfect for this.
Car dealers traditionally try to buy the most amount of something for the cheapest possible price, right? It's a volume play with them, unfortunately, and it is a super ineffective way of marketing. Shotgun approach. I'll go to Facebook because I can get 2-penny ads, and that's kind of what you're up against. So, when we presented out to Nissan Infiniti guy, it's kind of what he hit us with. This is what I'm doing right now. Like, I have a highly sophisticated approach with Google and with Facebook, and this is what I'm doing. I'm buying by the numbers, optimizing my spend. I've got this down to this amount. I've got this down to this amount. I said, okay, that's great. So let's talk about something that's completely different from that, that's going to do something completely different for your business. And so we had this conversation. It doesn't always work, but I will say this about the conversion rate. When you talk about the hardest part is getting in, I would agree with you on that, because once you get in, so we have presented as of, I don't know, last week. Cora knows this too because I go over this on the village calls. We had 312 presentations that were generated, which is not, I mean, it sounds like a big number, but 7 people, 312 over several months, not a ton. It's not like they were burning it up, going out there and killing it and driving 20 presentations every week. But they generated 312 presentations, of which somewhere between 40 and 45 were CLP presentations. So 312 presentations. How many of those do you think we closed?
10.
Good guess. Somebody else? 312 presentations, they went out and presented.
I thought you meant CLP ones.
Damn it. So I'm hoping to shock you, right? So 10 was great.
30.
Okay, 30, that's a good guess. It's 10%. 78, we're getting good. Okay, so they closed 150 out of 312. So first thing I said, now I know it's like, wow, that conversion rate's like 50%. First thing I said was, okay, you're just going to people you know. Like, come on, like, there's no way you're cold calling and converting at 50%. You know how cold calling works. It's hard. A lot of times you don't even get the appointment. How is it we averaged over $2,500 per presentation built? Like, just if I took the number of presentations I built and the number of dollars we generated, even the ones like, if I take all of them, closed, not closed, whatever, just building the presentation, we average over $2,500 per presentation built. That's nuts. So I don't think that's sustainable. I think that's going to continue till we get to $1 million, which we're going to do fairly soon. And then I think it gets really hard, because now it's like we've gone to the low-hanging fruit, we've gone to the guys we have relationships with, now we got to sort of whatever. Nonetheless, if I told you guys we have a product that we closed half of and 150 closes for 800 grand, you'd be like, well, I mean, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, but what's next year?
Yeah, so,
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
like, the whole thing is, how long have you been doing it, and what's the re-signing rate for the following year?
Yeah, so with CLP, we don't know, right? With display, I mean, we don't know for these programs. We do for our own display because they've been selling it for years. And obviously, if you take a look at the Sioux, because it's been doing it for the longest, their churn rate is almost non-existent. Now, they identified themselves as dominant media. People don't want to lose their spot. So their churn rate in the Sioux is like literally, it's almost non-existent. Clients come in, they stay. Guys who, there's always going to be guys at the bottom end that are experimenting with everybody, in, out, in, out. The reason we made 12-month programs is because your retention is way higher. In 12 months, we have time to do a lot of good stuff. We're going to write a great article about them. We're going to optimize their profile. We're going to connect with them a dozen times. We have a lot of times to do really good stuff. With community leaders, it's exclusive. There's only 10. I would be very surprised if these guys are willing to let go of their spot. Particularly, you get together now you're on the board, you're now talking about doing things that are good in the community. You're going to give all that up just to run displays somewhere over there? I doubt it, but we'll see. For display, we already know if you run 2-month campaigns, 3-month campaigns, your churn is high, typically really high. When you run 12 months, you have a long time to prove your value. You have a lot of touch points with that client, and your renewal rate tends to be a lot higher, which is another reason we introduced the annual campaign.
Major players prefer a 12-month anything, whether it's lines rate or radio rate or TV investment or online. Just it becomes part of their budget. It's easy because they're basically lazy people. They've got so much on their plate. They don't want to spend a lot of time on.
You're right.
On the marketing decisions.
You don't have to reopen that conversation in 30 days.
No, exactly. It's easier for us, easier for them.
Can we talk about the numbers as far as in the other markets since April? How many hubs were sold, how many Hub Plus, and how many CLPs were sold? Like, I know there was a big goal that was to be achieved by October. I think they'd be interested in knowing.
Yeah, so end of October, the goal was we wanted to sell, I think we wanted to sell 225, I don't have the exact number of how many combined CLPs and hubs and whatever we wanted to sell by the end of October, and we wanted to sell $1 million worth of stuff. So as we're approaching that, and I think we're going to do it, I feel like maybe if I'd set the number higher, maybe we would have done that too. You know, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It feels like it's too much of a coincidence that like we wanted to get to I think we wanted to get to 725 by the end of August, and we were at like 709 or something, and I'm like, what are the odds? Like it feels like if I'd said 825, maybe we would, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so we wanted to sell $1 million. Now all the reps I felt from the middle of July to Labor Day did almost nothing in terms of these programs. Now, they were away a lot. Everybody took their vacation in that 6-week period. Some of them took 3 weeks. One guy took a month in the Sioux. So I felt like nothing happened, and we have, like you guys have, we have a pipeline, right? So how many proposals do you have sitting in your pipeline waiting for answers on? Well, at one point when we first went out, we got like 800,000 proposals sitting in the pipeline. That was great. And then you look from like middle of July to August, there was like $1,000 worth, I don't know, I'm exaggerating. It was like $10,000 worth of proposals. It was terrible. Nobody did anything. They just sold their ad hoc campaigns, and nobody wanted to go through the work of the program because they're like, I'm going on vacation next week, so I don't really want to start the process and whatever. So I said to all of them, from beginning of September to the end of October, I want you to sell 6 hubs and 2 CLPs. Because we have had people who have done that, and now I want you all to do that. And so everybody was like, oh my God, like I'm starting from nothing. I'm just back from vacation. Give me a few weeks to depressure. Man, you got 2 months. I want you to sell 2 CLPs and 6 hubs. So, you know, in Guelph, we have 7 CLPs sold. They have 2 reps. If they each sold 2, well, we had 6, and now one of them has sold 1, so it's 7. So if we get the remaining 3, we'll get to our 10, which gives us critical mass for our board, and that's great. Then I can take the next step, right, with the CLP program. If they all sell 2 CLPs and 6 hubs in a 60-day period, then we will end up doing like $1.2 million. So they're probably not going to do that, but I'm hoping that we get 7 or 8 CLPs sold in that time period, and that maybe we don't get 42 hubs, maybe they get 30 hubs. It's still fantastic numbers for us. I would think for you guys, it will be more like Guelph, where Guelph went out and said, okay, we've got a bunch of clients that we think are perfect for CLP, and we went out and we pitched 20 and we sold 7 of those 20. And that's really, if you guys want to move the needle quickly, think about your CLP guys and figure out, okay, are there 20 or 30 guys that are perfect for CLP? Let's just figure those out. Let's go out and have our intake appointment. Let's tell them a little bit about what it is. Let's go back, make presentations for them. If we present to 30 of those, we're probably going to get 5 to 10. And that number is extremely significant.
How many of your towns sell just web? That's our biggest problem is we're trying to sell 4 different media.
I know.
And I said from day one, you can't sell 4 media effectively.
It's hard.
You take the path of least resistance.
It's hard.
And,
Yeah, you're right.
If you want to make it successful, you have to, I think, I don't want to flip out here, but exclusive sales team just for web, exclusive for radio, exclusive for TV. We generate way more income when we were separate than we are together.
Well,
Sales reps make more money selling multimedia. I have, everybody else here has, but it's not best for the company.
but as a company, you feel you can get a higher yield per client.
They won't change now, it's too
Yeah.
late.
Yeah.
Right.
But
They worked too hard to get it the other.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah,
I would
it's-
include radio with this, I would include TV with this. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah, look, obviously I'm stepping on, corporate policy, and so you guys will have your policy, and it is what it is. In our markets, as you know, we only sell this,
Yeah.
right? So there is no other requirement, and I can tell you that we became so focused that there were digital products we eliminated just to get them to focus. Because we knew when you talk about the path of least resistance, if a guy goes out and he can sell a $100 product, he will. Because he knows he can close that in 10 minutes, right? I'll get you that $100 product and I'm gone. That $100 product generates 0 profit. Like we lose money on it. So we had to take away all of the easy stuff to force them into this, and it worked. In your environment, I mean, you have Quora, which is helpful, right? So you can introduce another person into the conversation, but that is definitely something that we're going to have to think through, because adding one more thing when you already feel like you're taking the path of least resistance as it is, if that's true, and I'm sure it is, if this becomes the path of least resistance, that doesn't necessarily help you, because you're just going to rob from Peter to pay Paul, right? Which we don't want. We want them to view their current purchase with you or their future radio or TV purchase distinctly from this. We don't want it to be an either or, right?
That's hard though, because they're gonna wanna steal from one, because they'll say, I can't put that on top of what I'm already spending.
Yeah.
It's an awesome program, but if I wanna do that, I can't do as much with radio or
Yeah. So what the Sioux, so yeah, it's true. So that's why you got to really be careful about guys who you think are maxing out. But what the Sioux did, so the Sioux had a bunch of people who, while it was digital, they were already spending $3,000 a month. It's like, why would I sell them CLP, which has a cost to it, when I'm already getting $3,000 a month for them for display? Well, the problem was that $3,000 wasn't regular. It was like 6 months of the year, 8 months of the year. So they went out to them and said, listen, I've got a program for $5,000 a month that includes all the stuff you used to do before, and it's like 2.5 times that. So, but if you commit for 12 months at $5,000 a month, you're going to get way more bang for your buck. You're still going to get that other stuff. You're going to get this too. So that was their way of preserving it, and it actually worked out okay for them. They just sold their third one like that. So it is conceivable you could go out to somebody who's paying this and get them to pay that. You don't get the full value of CLP, but you might get an incremental $15,000 or $20,000, and it solidifies them for 12 months, where otherwise they might not have been as regular as you wanted them to be.
Well, we have a lot of clients that we know are spending with our competitors. So
Even better.
we can go after that money.
There's no question that whatever they're spending with their competitors, they're not going to get anything like this. So it isn't going to feel like, well, that's pretty similar to what I'm spending with my competitor, and I'm already there, so why don't I just leave well enough alone? This is going to be a complete shift from what they're spending with someone else. So I don't want to offer that up I don't want to make it sound like it's easy, because I know when you're protecting their current spend with you, it is not easy, right? It doesn't always come from the competitor like you want it to. Sometimes it ends up coming from you.
The problem is, I got 3 cars that are on the car program, and one in particular, it's 8 to 10 attempts every single month
Yeah.
to get the information, and I'm worried about losing the inventory, and it's a battle every single month. So that's why one of the questions I ask you is about Northside Toyota, because the Toyota dealer here, great guy, just super busy, takes way too much work on, and it's 8 to 10 attempts every single month, sometimes 2 and 3 times a day. And it's just, I feel like I'm wasting so much time on for
You
$200
are.
a month. It just makes no
Yeah,
sense.
you are. That makes no sense. I wouldn't do it myself. Like, it's good content to get and all the rest, but there is like, your time is worth money,
I'm
right?
actually having come in a week or two to try and simplify this process, because mistakes happen. You know, his assistant who he hired that's supposed to help with this, it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
He gives me an ad, he finds a mistake, we're running
That's
along.
because they hire people that aren't really.
Which he came from Shell Media, who's supposedly the expert in the bay. We all know that they're not. But,
Well, look, the auto guys, like, it's been a challenge for us too. And a lot of the problems is that auto guys, we take a feed now, right, from their third-party provider. And the problem is that they're doing all kinds of funny business with their third-party provider to lower their costs. So like, I've got 2 lots, but I'm putting all my inventory under the 1 lot name. And so stuff's coming to our site, and it's just like gobbledygook. And so when we try to fix it, it turns out that, oh, you know what, so-and-so's using so-and-so's login, I'm trying to cut $1,000 a month off my cost here. Well, it makes it almost untenable for us.
I found a small solution. I take the big box ad and run exactly what the DA in this case is telling them to run, and we build that out. So everything else is billed at no charge. So if there's mistakes, there's
Not a bad idea.
repercussion on the co-op end.
Not a bad idea.
I mean, it's so far it seems to be okay.
But it's an awful lot of work for the money you're getting, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, which
It's frustrating. And he's a good guy. He likes to micromanage everything. He's winning way over his head for amount of volume. You know?
yeah, so he might not be, I mean, here's the great thing about this program. Like,
No, he wouldn't be winning for this.
yeah, you can go, or I mean, not just CLP, but any of these programs, you can go to anybody. And I think you guys can be selective, right? Like, if you're talking about it and saying, okay, I don't need to sell 200 hub displays this year and 15 CLPs myself. I don't need to do that. But if I could get 2 or 3 CLPs and maybe get 20 or 30 hub displays over the course of 12 months, then I can kind of be choosy. So I don't have to think about cramming it down every sort of business owner's throat. When I know there's guys who are going to be super high maintenance, paying $200 a month, maybe I don't start there. maybe I can just say, hey, I've got 3 or 4 sweetheart clients I think would be great for this, not spending a lot of money, great for CLP. And then I've got a bunch of hub guys. I think $6,000 isn't going to swing anybody's spend. Maybe I'll just make a target list of those guys, which is what I hired our reps do. To start out, I said, I want you to make a target list. And most of them didn't want to do it, because they like to fly by the seat of their pants, but they did. And it made it way more economical. Because I said, there's going to be clients you don't want. Just too much work for the money, right?
Well, that's the other problem. If we do become successful, what's the decision on the back end for staff? I mean, to run it, just do that auction, it was really tough to get something changed real quick because we're doing so much volume over a short period of time.
Yeah, auction's tough because it's time sensitive, right?
I mean, how do you got 10, you said you got 10 reporters just in Sioux.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, so 10 reporters, that's just for our new, let's be like the reporters you guys have here, right? So,
That news department has it altogether, you know.
yeah, I know, it's amazing. But that is not, that will not impact you because, excuse me, if you need something for community leaders, there is money that will come for that is available for freelancers here. So that won't be an issue. The issue, which you're right to bring up, if you guys knock it out of the park, is going to be fulfillment. Who's writing all the descriptions, who's writing the articles, who's making whatever, and you don't want it to be Cora, right? I would say, I know this isn't what you want to hear, I would say that's a great problem to have. Go make that problem a problem. Go get enough business, because we will backfill for you until you bring on an internal resource. We will find a way to help you build your proposals and make your profiles and whatever until you can backfill for that resource. So I said, Rogers, it's way worse inside of Rogers because there's 1,000 levels, and to get anything changed is extraordinarily complex. So we sold the first program at Rogers, we could not get it fulfilled. Because it was this person, that person, this person, that person, this person, they all had like 17 different things to do. So we backfilled for it.
What do you mean?
So it means, you know, we offer up some of our own internal resources to make sure that you guys, when you're getting started, you guys don't fall behind the curve. So we would work with Cora.
The staff time to do it. You got to get hold of the customer. Like customers, you've gone 20 times, visit 30 times, they still won't give you the information. So it just creates that more. I just see that problem expanding.
Yeah, so that's why the intake's really important. So our reps go out and basically do the intake and get whatever information they're going to get, and they don't get a lot of information after that. And then our guys go online, look at their websites, whatever, write their descriptions, send it out to them. A lot of guys don't respond. It's up, it's live, it's optimized, it's good. We didn't get anything from them. Then we come to Spotlight, the writer calls them and says, hi, I'm a writer. First of all, I can tell you, sales rep trying to get in touch with a guy, writer trying to get in touch with a guy, totally different. Writer, yeah, hey, I'd love to talk. Oh, interviewing me? Yeah, I'm ready. Sales rep, you want to talk to me? I am not ready. I do not want to talk to you. You know, no offense, but that's just kind of, they don't want to talk to us. But they're happy to talk to someone writing a feature about them. Our writers actually don't have much trouble getting in touch with our clients. And our reps will tell you, when it's a collections call, not surprisingly, or when it's a call for an appointment, it's like, I got to make 15 calls to this guy. And the writer's like, really? I just called once and I got into the guy. We had a really lovely chat, whatever. So, yeah, it's never going to be easy, but we are committed on the back end to figuring that piece out as we go. It's hard because right now you don't need anybody. And if you guys go out and sell a ton tomorrow, you'd have a shortfall in resources. So it's chicken and the egg, right? You go out and hire someone and then they're sitting around because they don't whatever. So we would figure that out. I would say go. I would say make your target lists, figure that out. Cora could certainly help you say, you know, this person's better suited than that person. Make your target list and then make your plan. How am I going to go out and try these guys? And you don't have to boil the ocean, right? You don't have to sell them all tomorrow. You just got to figure out, okay, let's try to sell one CLP and one hub display. Let's just try to sell one of each and fulfill it so I can see how it works.
Are the reps in the other market selling more hubs than hub pluses? Like is pretty much every client a hub first and then upgrade
No.
to a hub plus?
The majority are a hub plus. So I was wrong about that. I thought that the reps would go out and sell a lot of hubs first because they were all selling $100 and $200 and $300 programs. So I thought they were going to go out and sell a ton of hubs, and then over time they would graduate them to display. I was wrong. The vast majority are hub display. Because when they go out and they pitch the hub, and then they say, oh, it's free. If you just buy some, guys like, well, why would I pay $2,400 now when I can go to $500 and get the $2,400 for nothing, right?
Same amount of time spent, why not give the most you can?
100%.
Sell $8,000 a radio in 10 minutes.
Well, this is the point, right? $100 client is a higher maintenance client than CLP client is. Like, it's crazy the amount of maintenance they take. So why do it? Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, all clients have an ego, so any chance we can get to show, if somebody sees some, a customer on, that's why I've always complained about, you know, some of our features that just, people that every day, they don't advertise with us, they don't advertise with us.
I know.
I know why you'd include them, but it'd be nice to include a mix of guys that are actually spending money with you.
Well, you never want an advertiser to feel like they've been disqualified for something because they support you.
And that's what it feels like to a lot of advertisers.
Yeah, like I am actually not now eligible for a benefit because I've been a supporter of this organization. It is not a good look. We've all, look, every person in this room has a story like that, right? And I understand the genesis of it, and it's not an easy fix, but we need to keep hammering at that until we can figure that out, because that's not a conversation you can have with a client. There's no way around it, right?
There's a reason why I call it the news department or revenue prevention department.
You do too? Yeah. That's what the guys, well, it's funny, they have a what's your dish function, which is about the local restaurants. And they literally will draw a line around it. Well, like, we have like 30 restaurants, right? And there's like none of them are covered in this. And they're like, well, why? I want to go out of the restaurant guide so I can get into the free promotion, right? Maybe then you'll consider me. And that's not a conversation you want to have.
Well, I got it free here, so I don't have to pay for that. I'm gonna put my money over here. That's happened 1,000 times.
Yeah, it's,
they don't
yeah.
put two and two together. Hey, this news whatever did a story on us. I want to reward them. A little psychological reciprocity, right? They did that for me. I feel like I want to spend money back. Customers don't think that way. They're as
And
loyal
even
as the second
even if
buy
it's
something.
not rewarding, just think of it in terms of, I know something more about this business, and they're a good business.
Yeah.
They're advertising, they're doing stuff with the community, they're a good business. That shouldn't disqualify them. That should further qualify them. I was in a company once where we were getting a few $1 million from Nissan, and Nissan put out a car called the Cube. And it was not great. And we could write any car review we wanted. And they chose to write one about the Cube, which was horrific. Freelancer too, not even like a staff journalist. And so my conversation was, okay, you can really do any car you want. I'm not asking you to change it, I'm asking you to spike it. Like, just, great, we're not running it. Run something else, right? It's a car review, and you can do any car you want. Let's just not do that one. No, we have to do that one. But do you have to? Like, is it a civic duty? Could you not maybe do something on a Lexus or something? No, we have to run. They ran it, a couple $1 million, gone. Gone. So for me, you can die on that sword for stuff like car reviews or restaurant reviews. If it's a murder investigation, you die on the sword, right? If you're doing an expose on government scandal, you die on the sword. But I don't know, man. Car review, is it worth a couple $1 million bucks?
They don't think from a retail sales mentality. They think I've got to fill 23 minutes this half hour. Here's
Right.
Here's what I was able to access. And they don't think like we think. So you can't expect
Right.
them to.
And you hope, and in a lot of ways you don't want them to, right? In a lot of ways you want them to sort of say, hey, my job is over here and your job is over there. But you want to have some of these bridges built for these soft pieces like a restaurant coverage or a new business opening or a big event. Those are where you need bridges built, where they can go to you and say, hey, do you got, like, I want to do something for events. Any of your guys got some good event going on? Like, all things being equal, might as well pick one of your guys.
We used to have a news director who did that. One that took over and decided nobody's telling me what to do. So it's really just an education and trying to warm up that relationship, because
Right.
it makes zero sense.
Well, we'll on that piece, I mean, look, community leaders was a huge step, right? Previous organization, they would never consider something like this.
And that's a good news story.
It's a great news story, right? For sure.
So-and-so was raise it without wanting the exposure, spending $100,000 to feed kids in the East End that need help, or